I'd like to call the special city council meeting of July 16, 2018. If I may have your attention, please. We'd like to call the special city council meeting of July 16, 2018 to order. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Thomas Masters.
Present.
Chairperson Tanya Johnson. Davis Johnson.
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Lynn Hubbard.
Here.
Councilperson Kashamba Miller Anderson.
Present.
Councilperson Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Terrence Davis.
Here.
City Manager Karen Hoskins.
Here.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Andrew DeGreffenwright.
Here.
You may proceed.
I'd like to stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Botel. Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being presented by council for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and or speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or the item is considered. Please keep in mind, general public, if you are in the middle of your comment at the end of the 3 minutes, you will be permitted to complete your statement. Madam City Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
No, ma'am, but however, there are quite a few participants from the Stony Brook area that I don't know if you want to consider taking that item first or you want to, it's up to you all.
What is the pleasure of the board? I'm sit back, I'm trying to see everybody's face. What's the pleasure?
I think given the number of people here, we should do that.
We can reorder the agenda to have the Stony Brook discussion and followed by the insurance.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Madam Councilwoman.
I would like to pull item number 1 regarding the insurance based on the fact that another special meeting was already called for Tuesday prior to this special meeting request coming out. And I thought that was a bit redundant, being that we had already scheduled a meeting for Tuesday. Also, in regards to the Stony Brook complex item, it's on the agenda for Wednesday. I'm not sure exactly if the discussion tonight would be, I know a presentation is on there for Stony Brook as well as a few items for us to vote on. I wasn't sure if tonight's meeting regarding Stony Brook would be slightly different from what is going to be on the agenda for Wednesday. But the Aetna insurance request was placed on, there was a request put out for Tuesday, mainly because, and the reason I did not put it on for Wednesday was because it may be a very lengthy discussion. I also have on that special meeting for Tuesday regarding the Summer Youth Employment Program, and that is on the agenda for, first of all, the agenda wasn't put out yet when I requested. However, I was informed that it was going to be on the agenda for Wednesday, but I still asked for it to be on a separate day because it may run into a long discussion as well. And so because of those 2 items, the summer youth employment and the insurance possibly taking a lot of time in regards to discussing it, I asked for a special meeting on a separate day from either tonight's meeting, which was the utility district, and the closed executive session, and also I made it on a separate date because of our agenda for our Wednesday meeting, which typically runs long anyway. So those 2 items I requested for Tuesday. I put that request in, I believe, on Wednesday. And then, you know, the next day we did get a request to have the insurance item placed on a special meeting. So I'm asking for that item number 1 to be pulled, and we stick with the first request that was put out to have the special meeting on Tuesday.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Chair Pro Tem, Councilman Davis. I'm sorry, I did not hear you. but I believe it was Councilman Davis. You all said it simultaneously, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Chair Pro Tem, Councilwoman Patel, Councilman Member Davis, and then the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put in the request for this special meeting because because number one, I was not privy to what was already going to be on the agenda. My reasoning, I can understand Councilwoman Miller Anderson has her reasons and the discussion that she wants to ensue into the special meeting that she put out. I put this out because I wanted it to be a special time, a separate time for two items that are very pertinent to this community. One, Stony Brook item needs to be discussed, and it needs to be discussed in detail so that everybody can know what's going on. We can hear from the community as to what is happening, and they can hear from us as to what we are going to do about it. Now, it might very well be on the agenda on Wednesday, but it gives them an opportunity to come back again to either, one, provide us some more information, or two, we will get an update in which to provide them. So I can understand and I appreciate the councilwoman wanting to be prudent of our time, but this is something that I think we need to take time to do. And as far as the insurance goes, the questions and the things that I have about it and the things that I want to say, I'm sure are quite different from anything that the councilwoman wants to have. And if it's redundant, it will be never too much of an explanation for this community if they are to hear it twice. I respect the fact, and I believe this is the very first special meeting that I have ever called. And it is because of the importance of both these items. To me, that is.
Councilwoman Patel, you recognize?
Yeah, I could not understand myself why a second meeting was called on the night before we had already set up a meeting to discuss the insurance situation. It had already been advertised, it had already been posted, we knew we were going to have a meeting to discuss the insurance situation. For the life of me, I cannot understand why anybody would put in another meeting on the same topic. We may have different questions about it, we may have be looking for different answers, but surely it's the same topic. I see no reason to have that conversation this evening when in fact we have so many people here from Stony Brook, we have so many issues. I agree, and in fact I think I asked Ms. Hoskins this question, why do we have the Stony Brook issue on the agenda tonight? But I believe we do need to have that conversation tonight and Wednesday night because so many people are in distress over there. We do need to have as much of a conversation as we can possibly have because there are going to be answers to that distress, I hope, in the near future. And so we do need to have that conversation in great detail with the people from Stony Brook. And so I would prefer that we concentrate tonight on Stony Brook and leave the conversation about the insurance until Tuesday night, which is when it was originally scheduled. Excuse me.
Point of order, please. Mr. Councilman Davis, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. What I will say is to respect to all my colleagues in the public is that we all have our opinions, we all have our positions, and I respect everybody's position and opinion. As regards to the meeting that was called on Monday, there was a meeting called on Tuesday. On Monday, as we know today, we had a utility district meeting. We also had a closed executive session. We're already here. It makes sense to support a meeting to be since we're going to be here. You know how difficult it's been for us to be here, not knowing each other's schedules. Me personally, I'm not able to be here on Tuesday for various reasons. Has nothing to do with what you guys have to do, but I have a personal issue that I must be to on Tuesday. I'm already here on Monday. I'm also support any of my colleagues if you had a meeting. If you're going to be here Tuesday, hey, I will be watching where I'm from. Do what you got to do. I support your opposition as long as it's in the best interest of the city. But I will never take a position against any of my colleagues for making decisions they want to do. I support you all wholeheartedly on what you want to do because it's my understanding that you all care about the best interest of the city. But let's focus on the city, the residents of Stony Brook, all the issues. But this meeting, I signed off on it because we're already here for 2 meetings. So since we finally got here for those 2 meetings, it makes sense to stay here and address the issues that we have. Now, there's a meeting tomorrow. If I can't break away from my previous engagement, I will be here.
I would respectfully ask the audience not to provide comments back in response to a council member, please. We want to be respectful of everyone's position, that being the council of yours and yours of the council. I do so humbly ask that we do this so that we can move this business along. Have you completed your
I
comments?
just want to state this for the record. You know, these meetings are called. We should not make every issue a controversial issue, but a supportive issue that we work together. And this community to find a way to come together for the best interest of the people and not be divisive about every issue that come up. We have to find a way to show the people that we can work together and focus on one another and focus on why we're here as public officials. That's it.
Mr. Mayor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly the residents of Stony Brook are here, attorneys are here, companies are here, advocates are here, so I am in support of hearing the issues tonight. They're here and it's before us. And all that isn't resolved tonight, then the regular city council meeting on Wednesday will be able to continue and pick it up, and maybe something can get resolved between now and Wednesday. And then we will have a full report on whatever has taken place between these 2 days. However, my issue is the insurance scandal, and that's what I call it, that's on the agenda tonight. I don't see how it got on the agenda, why it was called to be on the agenda when council knew that Kashama Miller Anderson and Dr. Botel had called for that matter along with the other matter to be discussed on Tuesday night. I asked the city clerk to do a little research for me, and she did. I asked her to go back into the archives of this city, and never before. She went back for 5 years. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? Please say in the mic so everybody can hear.
Yes, it is.
Never before in the history of this city has there ever been a special call meeting for item A, let's say for Tuesday, and then someone rushes down the day to call it the day before. That just doesn't happen. That's not good government, people. I'm sorry. That's not good government. That's not how we do things. That's why she couldn't find it, because I'm going to break a few rules of grammar, because it ain't there. That's why she couldn't find it. We're better than that, and we should have more respect for our colleagues or the mayor, that when something is called, when another council person goes and sign it, then then if there's a quorum, when that time comes, then you go forward. It doesn't give you the right to go and call the meeting, and as some people may say, to hijack the one that was officially been called. That's just not good government. It's not right. It's not fair. It sets a bad precedent for this city to start doing that because someone may not be there or they have other questions that they may want to ask they couldn't ask before. Now, I did a little bit more research, and I found out that there was a meeting on October the 18th, and the council felt that there was an item again that at the time it was Chair Kashama Miller Anderson put an item on the agenda. She was within her right to do it, the chair and the city manager, who was Mr. Troy Perry. Go back and check. I have the minutes provided by the city clerk. And in the minutes, that item was taken off because 4 council people felt that that item should not be discussed. It was a consensus, and she fought this battle by herself. And 4 council people said, no, we don't want it on the meeting. They took it off. So it would not be anything new. And that item, by the way, was the police, was the discussion of the police morale issue about the police department after that lopsided vote of no confidence in the former chief at that time. We've got to do what's right. And if it's right, it has to be right all the time. It can't be inconsistent. It has to be consistent. That's good government. So I'm asking, and I believe in that meeting, it was Councilman Terrence Davis who led the fight to take that off for whatever reason, because it wasn't to be, did not want a public discussion. I think one person felt that the city manager should handle it, shouldn't come before the board. Another person felt one way. We could just read the minutes for yourself. But the bottom line, they got a consensus from the council to take it off. I think we have more of a reason tonight to take it off than then, because we already had a meeting scheduled. There wasn't another meeting scheduled. That's never happened. So I'm asking, in the interest of time, number one, in the interest of fairness, number two, in the interest of doing what's right, number three, and the interest of just being respectful to two of your council people who had already put it on the agenda, that this council will go on record tonight and do just what you did a few months ago and take this issue off about the insurance scandal and put it where it was, which was on Tuesday night. That's the right thing, and that's what we did.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Pro Tem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not about personal and personality. This is about issues that affect the people of this community. Has nothing to do with any one person. Just as we said, we're going to talk about Stony Brook tonight, and any overflow issues will be taken up Wednesday. The same thing will happen with the topic of the insurance. While the drama and the grandstanding about the insurance scandal, it's not about grandstanding and drama. It's about getting the facts out and dealing with the issues. That's what I am talking about. My calling this meeting was not to disrespect or disregard or hijack anything. It was about dealing with the business of this city and to continue to do business in a business-like manner. We can't continue to make everything about anybody and everything so personal. This is about doing business. Madam Chair, let's move this meeting forward. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Sorry, one moment, please. I would like to say simply this. We are a collective body, and as such, all members, including the mayor, has the wherewithal, according to the charter, to call a special meeting at any given time. Now, what the charter does not speak to or provide is an opportunity for me as chair to cancel, to otherwise table it, or to intervene, or to just do away with any special meeting that is called by two council people. Now, what I will say is this. I don't agree with having 3 separate meetings, and I don't see it as being in the best interest of taxpayer dollar, employee resources, and having to be here to discuss several matters. But the one thing that we need to do as a council is stop what is actually going on, because we are making very concerted efforts to implode and to show ourselves as if we are incapable of operating as a council. We have to, from this dais, stop it with the shenanigans and the sensationalizing, because we have enough of that going on. We have an issue at Stony Brook, which is in my district. Everyone is jumping the gun and feels as if they need to, just overstep the district representative. I've been in touch with Millennia and its council and asked them to come out on Thursday to really just sit down with the residents of Stony Brook so that we can specifically talk about the issues. But for me, as chair, although I may not agree with the continuation and the calling of meetings on the very same subject, I will serve as chair in the capacity in which I have been voted by this council until such time if you change your minds. But I will be here to serve and to chair these meetings as however the members feel it necessary. But we've just got to get on one accord and handle the business of the city. It's very disjointed, it's very disconnected, and it's counterproductive. So I want to go on record as having said that. And with Commissioner Botel, you recognize.
Madam Chair, I had called before.
Both of you
Botel.
said it at the same time.
No, I said it.
I'm not
way
going, we're not
before
going to
that.
argue, but if you would,
No,
please.
ma'am, I said it long before she said anything. I did say, long
Go ahead,
before.
Commissioner Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
Thank you. So it's fine that we want to address the insurance issue, but the thing is, I made the request for information well over a week prior to the request for the meeting being put in. No one else called for a special meeting, but a second special meeting was requested after I had already requested a meeting, and it had been already put out. So if anyone was interested in the topic, they had an opportunity over a week to put it in, and no one did. So to now put in a request for a special meeting for the insurance after we knew there was already a special meeting was a bit
I'm sorry, continue.
was a bit suspect. So that's where my issue comes in with it. And furthermore, the Stony Brook issue, yeah, we do need to go ahead and address that. I can see doing that tonight. But the insurance, I have an issue with it, and I believe we need to pull it off because it is not going to be a 5, 10, 20-minute discussion. We already know that. So to now say, let's move on with it is crazy. I asked for the Tuesday night because when we met on last week, we initially were talking about doing a closed executive session. And I think all of us were available. And I did say that in my request, since we had already looked at our schedules and said that we all would be available to participate with the closed executive meeting on that Tuesday. I said, let's do it for that Tuesday because the insurance would require a long discussion and the summer youth employment would require a long discussion. So those two items were put on a separate night. I have no issues with Stony Brook being discussed tonight, but I do believe that is the only thing we need to discuss, and I would like to see the Aetna insurance pulled off and we stay with our special meeting for tomorrow.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
I believe it was Commissioner Botel.
Thank you.
Did you have anything further?
I make a motion that we take the item of the insurance off the agenda for this evening and hold it till tomorrow's meeting.
Well, before you do that, everyone has had a second opportunity to comment, and I want to keep in line with that. So, Councilman Davis, did you have a comment? I'm coming back to you.
Yes, ma'am. Just like stated, Councilperson Mills Anderson stated that it was brought up in discussion about what we may do next Tuesday. And if I want to recall, I did say I would try to be there Tuesday if I can, and I told the council that. But that's not to say that you all still can't meet on this Tuesday, discuss what you can. So I supported you guys the other day in that meeting, and I'm supporting you guys now. Someone called a special meeting. Well, Monday we was already going to be here. It only made sense for someone to sign off on it since we already had 2 meetings here anyway. That's not to say that we can't show up tomorrow if you can, but I told you last week I will try to be here with you guys, but that don't mean that you guys can't move forward. And I don't think there's no one on the council that should not be able to remember that comment that was stated. We're here to work together, not to fight for Channel 5 and the people that's on TV to watch. I'm not going to no longer sit in this city that I love so cold-heartedly and not support this community and work together on the board. There are some folks, and as we recall, when we talk about issues in Stony Brook, everybody in the city knows this goes back in 2011. They know who are over 200 units, the small group that knocked on every door, did every inspection, okay, before the cameras came on board. That was the office. It wasn't the office of Councilman Davis. I was just a regular lay person who worked with a small group to do these things. The young lady, Kristen Artist, can tell you that. Okay, this ain't about TV anymore. This is about lives we're trying to save. Let's find a way to be the one city in Palm Beach County that everyone is watching to pull together. If you want to fight, y'all can fight in the street. But let's work together. And we keep saying that. Some folks coming to fight, we can't do nothing about folks who come to fight. Let them fight. That's fine, and then that's what they choose to do. But like I said before, if you do wrong, let's find a way to improve it. If you do good, let's support people. But let's stop the fighting. Okay? Let's leave the attitudes at home. Let's do better. We can do better. Everyone's not going to choose to do right. And we have to fight through that process on doing right. And I will no longer bite my tongue when we're trying to get people to do right because we got young folks at home that are witnessing this and they're holding us accountable to a higher standard. And we can no longer continue to fight and hold this city back.
Oh, please. With that being said, Councilwoman Botel?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we take this item off the agenda for this evening and consider it tomorrow night.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Davis,
No, ma'am.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Votel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
No.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson of dissension.
And let me just state for the record, in the interest of taxpayer resources, dollars, time, and the ability, I totally, this is such a challenge because the charter provides that any council person can call. And I understand the duplication of efforts, but in the essence of taxpayer resources, for which I am a taxpayer as well, as we all are, I'm sensitive to the concerns that were addressed. With that being said, we have not adopted the agenda. We have that item being removed for discussion on tomorrow. We will take up we revise the agenda to deal with Stony Brook as a whole. Are there any disclosures by council?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I did speak with
You're
the
recognized, Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
advocate and representatives from the Millennia Group.
I heard Councilwoman Botel.
Yes, I met today with, I met the other day with Wayne Richards, Cephas Scott, today with Jeff Grossman, Andrew Adams. I've been on the phone with Tom Mignonia, is that right? And today I met with some advocates for, that's terrible, advocates for the people at Stony Brook. I apologize.
Anyone else have any disclosures?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Davis,
I
you're
have met
recognized.
with Mr. Scott, Mr. Richards, and many residents of Stony Brooks over the course of the last 3 months pertaining numerous issues that we're getting ready to discuss today.
Thank you. Commissioner Chair Pro Tem, any disclosure?
No, ma'am.
I would like to officially disclose that I have met with Attorney Wayne Richardson. I've talked with Mr. Mignogna. I've talked with the advocate for Stony Brook by way of telephone with regards to their concerns, and I have talked with staff. Mr. Mayor, you recognize?
Yes, I went to the property, I guess last week, and I spoke to Crystal and a group of residents who were kind of surrounded in that, right there. And I also spoke by phone to, I guess, the leader of the advocate group, and I'm gonna always be on the side of the people, so let's just get this going, let's move. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would like to request a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved, motioned and properly second, Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Votel,
Yes.
Councilperson Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Councilperson Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
Pro Tem Hubbard,
Yes.
Chair Davis Johnson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Public comments shall begin at 7:30 p.m. Unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in that event it shall begin sooner. In addition, if an item being considered at 7:30 is considered at 7:30 p.m., then comments from the public shall begin immediately thereafter. Items have been concluded. Any person who would like to speak during public comments, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff before the public comments section is announced. Would it be the pleasure of the board to accept public comments at this time?
That's fine.
Yes.
That's fine.
Do we have public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do. The acceptance of public comment cards for this particular section of the agenda is now closed. Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. There's no person's name on this.
Excuse me.
Would you call like the three so that they can be prepared?
The next person will be Candy. I'm not able to read the last name. And then Darlene Cruz.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Amy Petway. I'm with the Legal
evening.
Aid Society. I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm with the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. With me also are colleagues Carlton Smith and Rick Collier. We want to make sure that everyone here knows that we're supporting the tenants. If there are any tenants present who do not have lawyers, please call us. 561 655. I don't usually call my number. 8944.
One more time, 65589.
44.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candy, I can't make out the last name. Darlene Cruz, Nikita Felder Davis.
Ms. Cruz?
Madam Chair, while she's coming, Dr. Cruz is coming. Can you just state for the record, what is the time of the meeting tomorrow night for people will know?
We will get to that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I will. I will.
I just was trying to kill a little time.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Cruz, you put in a public comment card? No.
Have public comment and number 2 placed on your public comment card.
I think that was the error when they wiped out the original item 1.
So you do not choose to speak at this time, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. You're welcome. Nikita Felder Davis, Bonnie Larson, Doretta Polk. Okay, we'll call you it. Ms. Davis Johnson, we will, Ms. Felder Davis stated that she wants to speak on item number 2. So I will call her back at that time. And the name that I could not read the last name, it's Cindy March and not Candy.
Okay. She'd like to come forward? Or are all comments, are we clear that we are just on general public comments that would have occurred at 7:30 p.m.? Because we are at 8:30, we did not want to prolong the public comments. We understand that you may want to comment on the item, but these are just your general public comments that would happen if we were in our normal sequence of time at 7:30.
Madam Chair,
Chair Pro Tem, you recognize?
is it possible that we can have the presentations and then the persons come up and make their comments afterwards?
Madam Chair, we do have separate comment cards for number
Thank
2.
you. Okay. So we need to, how many more comment cards do you have, Madam Clerk, for public comment?
Bonnie Larson, Doretta Polk, Bessie Brown, Douglas Lawson, Willis Williams.
Ms. Larson has indicated that she passes. I don't see Ms. Brown. Ms. Polk, are you wishing to pass? You're going to pass, thank you.
Douglas Lawson.
Mr. Lawson? Okay, Mr. Lawson will pass.
Willis Williams.
Mr. Williams, will you pass? One moment, Ms. Brown. Who else do we have remaining?
And we have Mr. L.V. Hold on, Mr.
L.V. Sylvester?
L.V. Sylvester.
Are you passing, or would you like to make your public comments known, Mr. Sylvester? You want to do public comment? Okay, Ms. Brown? We're just on general public comments, Ms. Brown. If you wish to, after the presentation on Stony Brook, you're welcome to comment then. But this is our general public comments that's slated for 7:30. No comments? You're passing or yes? Then come on. Good evening, Ms. Brown.
Good evening. Good evening,
Good evening.
Ms. Davis and the rest of the council. I have, the thing I have to say is that whether the meeting, whoever did what, let's just suck it up and don't waste the time. Honest to goodness, because the bickering is really, it's just not nice. And the only thing I was watching it, I was home. I missed the last comments, the public comments tonight, because I was watching it and everything just disappeared. So I saw no comments. You know, we do have Channel 18 for a lot of purposes, and basically because we have seniors and we have people that can't get out. So let's just make sure you all don't talk the items to death, and they're so late. I don't know. This is no chastising anybody. This is just real because it needs to stop. That was not necessary tonight because these people come out for something. And then the whole thing about it is that Stony Brook is not new. This has been going on for about 3 or 4 years, or maybe longer, because I've been a part of it. So now it's gotten to the point where they're back on TV again. Now we're going to speak. When we gave it to the man, he said he was going to bring prisoners down here to put in departments when they get out from Tennessee. That was not a big deal, because I was sitting right in the council meeting when he said. But we need to start focusing on this community, and that's the thing. And it shouldn't have taken this long to have a special meeting about Stony Brook.
L.V. Sylvester, John Miller, Andre Henderson.
Coach Miller, are you passing? You're passing. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is L.V. Sylvester III. I live on Singer Island.
Good evening.
I wanted to talk about two different things. One is about all the interim directors in city government. It's incredible that nearly every person listed on council agendas, city directories, et cetera, are shown as interim directors. No wonder mistakes are being made all over the place, and so much city business is not getting done. No wonder this city continues to employ people who have not been able to become licensed to do their job. It just seems like things need to change. And Ms. Hoskins, as far as I know, there's never been a resolution to the raises that were given to employees that were extremely huge raises. This situation seems to stem as a direct result of the firing of Jonathan Evans last September 20th. Mr. Evans was apparently attempting to address some of these problems in our city government when he was summarily dismissed. Mr. Davis and Ms. Hubbard, you may think it appropriate or acceptable to install incompetent or unqualified people into city jobs. I do not. No one should be hired who is not qualified for the position. This city cannot improve until this council, this interim city manager, and all of the interim directors of the departments determine that competence and qualifications are priority number one for any and all of our city employees. The second item that I want to talk about is about the contract negotiations with city employees. At every recent council meeting during public comments, one or more of our city employees has come to this podium to plead for our city council to push for good faith negotiations between the city and its employees. On Wednesday's council meeting, there are two regular resolutions appearing on the agenda, items 16 and 17. Each resolution authorizes the city to employ separate outside firms to handle negotiations with our city employees. Each resolution extends a contract apparently in place since April of 2012. Each resolution seeks to employ the two separate firms to perform exactly the same duties. Why do we need to employ two firms to do the same thing? That's a question that I have. I don't understand. It seems like a waste of money. One gets $275 an hour. The other's a law firm that gets various things. The other thing is that I want to thank you, Mr. Davis, for at least sitting here during this public comments section. The last one on the utility district, you missed all three speakers who spoke from the public, and you were gone for over 17 minutes. Thank you.
Any additional public comment cards?
Andre Henderson.
Mr. Henderson, are you in the building?
How you doing? Of course, I was one of the individuals who wanted to comment about tomorrow, and I'm happy that we did delay it. But also, there's some other issues. The 20 to 22 police officers. I'll wait till Mr. Davis leaves.
Mr. Henderson, please continue, please.
All right. So, 20 to 22, we're supposed to add 2 more officers. I don't want to lose that in the midst of all of this going on, which is supposed to be Wednesday. That's an important issue that's brought up. Those are police officers that need to get made whole or compensated. Also, Stony Brook, I understand people that don't want to comment and wait until tomorrow, but this is an issue that as a community we need to talk about. All of us need to come up. We shouldn't delay and not speak about it. So I hope that everyone who here is not here just to comment about the insurance, but they comment about everything. And also another point, me and Mr. Horton, we had a talk. We did a pretty good job on hiring that electrician because the $27 is the average for the national, and we're at 24, so we did a good job there. But also we need to seriously consider hiring another electrician with 52 lift stations is important because we don't want to have the issue come up. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for a point of clarification, the speakers asked to wait to hear the presentation before
Thank
they
you. I
speak.
apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comment cards?
Madam Chair, that concludes public comments at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business?
No, Madam Chair.
Any
And-
petitions? It's here.
Yeah. I was reading Robert's Rules of Order, and it stated that if we don't have anything listed, I read it today, that if we don't have anything listed, that we don't have to call it out.
Then that would have been helpful for you to have provided me that information in advance of giving me the
I
annotated
just read it right
agenda.
before, so I
Okay.
do apologize.
Thank you, ma'am. Regular business discussion and deliberation. Discussion and deliberation regarding Stony Brook. Madam Clerk,
Madam Chair.
the acceptance of public comment cards. Are you?
Madam Chair, before we close out public comment cards, I noticed that a couple of our public checked off public comment but did not put number 2, and yet they said they wanted to hear the presentation. How would you like for it to be handled?
We will give them an opportunity to come and correct their comment cards so that you can call them appropriately as we move forward after the discussion.
Okay. So if Ms. Bonnie Larson, if you want to speak on number 2, if you would come and correct your public comment card, Ms. Doretta Polk, Ms. Bessie Brown, Mr. Douglas Lawson, and Mr. Willis Williams.
Do you have a card for Ms. March, please?
Ms. Cindy March has number 2 marked on her card already.
Thank you. In the interest of progressing with the discussion, if you would just keep your, Madam City Manager, would you please begin this? And I know that you put the item on the agenda, but would you allow the City Manager to introduce this item, please?
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Acting Director Jeff Gagnon has prepared a presentation, and also we have Attorney Christie here to add any additional comments that may be that may need to be made regarding the Stony Brook item. Acting Director Jeff Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Gagnon.
So our special meeting tonight was noticed last Thursday on July 12th. We have multiple items associated with the Stony Brook apartments that are scheduled for our City Council meeting this Wednesday, July 18th. There are 3 specific items that are scheduled for that meeting. Number 1 is an ordinance to move forward with the abandonment of an unnamed right-of-way. Number 2 is also an ordinance which will amend our off-street parking ratios for affordable housing to reduce the parking ratios required. Number 3, it's just a discussion item. Staff wanted to have a discussion item on the site plan, and it was scheduled in this way prior to this meeting being called, so hopefully tonight can serve in a similar capacity and allow for public input, allow for general discussion. Additionally, Millennia, which is the property management team, has requested an opportunity to speak following the brief staff presentation in lieu of submitting comment card. So on April 26th of this year, the Planning and Zoning Board reviewed the 3 aforementioned items. That's the abandonment, the text amendment, and the site plan application. All 3 were recommended City Council approval. On July 11th last week, there was a city staff inspection of Stony Brook. Following those inspection results, we met with both city staff, our legal representatives, as well as Millennia, the property management group, to discuss ongoing items of concern. And at this point, I can turn it over to Millennia if they have additional comments, or I'm here to answer any questions that council may have.
Madam Chair,
Chair Pro Tem, you're recognized.
we can, I can save my comments to after Millennium speaks, and then I would like to call staff back up to address some of the concerns that I have. So, okay, we can hear from Millennium now. I'll wait.
Greetings, my name is Wayne Richards. To the Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Vice Chairperson, the Council, the Mayor, who is, I think, here somewhere, greetings, and the staff. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here with a team from Millennia Housing Development. Millennia has the contract to manage the apartments. I think we all know that the apartments are currently owned by Global Ministries. For the record, Millennia does not have is not affiliated with Global Ministries, and Millennia has a contract to purchase the apartments. There's been some discussion, well, is Millennia and Global Ministries working together simply as an arm's length transaction? It is my understanding that Global Ministries is losing all of their properties on a national scale, and Millennia is purchasing many of them. We have a very esteemed staff crew with us today. Tom Mignona, please stand. Tom is a senior tax credit development partner for Millennia. He is the gentleman who put together the new $13 million plan. Jeff Crossman, please stand. Jeff is the public relations manager and an attorney for Millennia. Andrew Adams flew in here a few days ago. He is a construction magnate for the company. He is a senior project manager, and he is the one that is coordinating all of these maintenance requests. And he is the gentleman who is putting together the 4 or 5 different work groups that have flown in from all over the country to work with the staff that's here. Thank you. Finally, we have Cephas Scott. Cephas has been here for quite a few months. I think many of us know him. He is the tenant advocate. He speaks on behalf of the tenants. Thank you, Cephas. So this Wednesday before you is a plan for Millennia to, once they acquire the property, to put in a $13 million rehab. They are looking to build a 3,100 square foot clubhouse right in the middle of Stony Brook, along Stony Brook Road. That's why we have, number one, request to abandon the right-of-way. Additionally, currently the plan meets your parking requirements. However, when you spend, Mr. Gagnon is an expert on this, when you spend or you improve a development past a certain threshold, you are no longer grandfathered. You must meet the current requirements. But we are asking that this council allow us to maintain the current requirements, which is 1 parking space per unit. And finally, we wanted to discuss a site plan because every apartment, all 216 apartments, will be transformed. Brand new kitchens, brand new bathrooms, totally gutted. The buildings will have new roofs. You have the new community center. It's a very exciting plan that you'll see this Wednesday. We were not certain what would be discussed today, so everybody is here. I will share with you that a few weeks ago, Millennia began a 100% inspection of every apartment. That was exacerbated with the city's, or it was increased with the city's inspections of a few days ago. As of today, we have alerted your council that 15 of the apartments that were cited by the city have been corrected and are ready for reinspection. The city has that information.
Please, please, please.
There are people with Millennia that can give the specifics, but we have notified the city in writing that 15 of those units are ready for inspection, and we'll be here to answer any questions that you may have.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Chair Pro Tem, you recognize.
I have no questions of you, Mr. Richards. Mrs. Godot, if you would come up, please, let's start this discussion. Mr. Richards mentioned that there's no affiliation with GMF and Millennia. In the research that we were doing, where we saw it said doing business, GMF doing business as Millennia, can you explain why, if they had no relationship, would it be listed as such?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Christy Gatto. I represent your Code Enforcement Division and your Nuisance Abatement Police Department Division. In our research, we did find that on several evictions. I would actually ask Mr. Richards to answer that question because I don't know what that affiliation means. I believe it's for purposes of evictions, but we did find that in the public record.
Okay. If you are not, and this is more, I'm going to say this as a statement more so than a question to the Millennial team. If this is, how can you, if you have no relationship with the other entity, how can you say doing business? How can I say Lynn Hubbard doing business as Christy Godot because you have a contract to buy my house? So now I'm going to,
Right.
I don't, that's what caused me pause, and that's what makes, things suspect to me. So thank you.
And I would agree with you having pause about that relationship. My understanding is the Millennium Companies has many divisions, much like the city. There is a management side, and there is the development side. The relationship that Mr. Richards spoke of was the contractual relationship on the development side to purchase the property. Currently, there is also a contractual side between Global Ministries and the management company, I'm assuming, to manage the company. So I believe the DBA is GMF Stony Brook doing business as Millennia. I believe it's their management arm for purposes of evicting tenants at Stony Brooks. And where that research was found was in official records for Palm Beach County, where they do record the judgments for evictions. So that legal title, which doing business as, creates a fictitious name to allow, I believe, the management company to evict tenants. And that's my understanding. Certainly more information could be provided by Millennium, but you are correct that we did look at the issue to see what the relationship was.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd like to begin with my...
Before you go further, I would like for Mr. Richards to clarify what that relation is.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My notes are local eviction council style the case that way for eviction purposes. Unequivocally, there is no question that Millennia, Division A, B, C, D, E, or F, has no co-ownership, nothing like that at all. This is strictly an arm's length transaction, and quite frankly, it's not simply Stony Brook. Millennia is purchasing numerous properties. We have a letter from Senator Mark Rubio this week, and I will give it to Ms. Godot tomorrow morning, where Senator Marco Rubio has asked that all local councils expedite whatever approvals are necessary to get Global Ministries out of town and to get Millennia on board. So unequivocally, there is no co-ownership. The only affiliation is a arm's length purchase. There's no question about it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair Pro Tem, please continue.
Yes. At this time, did the building official arrive yet? My next question is for her.
Madam Building Official, please come forward.
Okay.
Good evening.
Please state your name for the record.
Lady March Goldwire, Building Official, City of Riviera Beach.
Good evening. I would like for you to provide a timeline of the building department and the building activity associated with Stony Brook beginning in early 2017 to date, and your interactions or relation with Millennia.
Okay, I can provide approximations for you. I arrived in January of 2017. Stony Brooks has always been an issue, something that was on our radar. However, August of 2017, it became or moved to the forefront. August 2017, I can't exactly remember the date, there was a fire at the location that displaced, if I'm not mistaken, 19 residents. It affected, I believe, Building F at that time. We had to go out and condemn that building initially. We condemned the entire building until the property management team demonstrated that they could secure the building properly. At that point, they were asked to bring in security, asked to do a fire watch to offset whatever issues or deficiencies they had associated with their fire alarm system. They were given a time certain to remedy those units and get the security issues in place. That lagged a little bit. We then were faced with the issues associated with the Hurricane Irma. That was 2017, whereby buildings B, buildings D sustained substantial damage to the rooftops. Residents were displaced yet again. At that point, our building department, alongside code enforcement, started to make inquiries relative to current business tax receipts, at which point we determined that there were no active business tax receipts, and so we began to ask for an inspection associated with being able to move the BTR, business tax receipt process, forward. In October, we had a situation, October, November, whereby the hold was placed on the application for BTR because we were not able to get in and do an inspection.
Madam, Mrs. March, at that point, were any of the deficiencies made? Who were you dealing with at that point? Was it GMF or was it Millennium?
I've never had any interaction with GMF. I've always dealt with Millennia. They've always presented that they were the property managers for the property and the point of contact. GMF, we knew, was on the record for as the owners, but every time that we reached out to the owners, they indicated that GMF was long gone, yet Millennial was the property management company. For us,
even with just property management alone, and it wasn't the development side of Millennia, they were not addressing the deficiencies that you found in the inspections that that you made on the apartments.
GMF nor Millennia were addressing the concerns that we had. Neither one of them indicated that at that point we were not getting the response we were looking for. There were some issues with being asked to allow security to discontinue their presence. There was some expectation that the city would continue to provide police presence, and we were running into some difficulties getting them to understand that they were a privately managed company and that the city would do what we could, but that was not our responsibility. So at that point, some of our interactions ceased. Millennia did advise that they would be coming in, hopefully, to move forward on a renovation. Our concerns were strictly related to what were they going to be doing now about the conditions back in September when we had the issue. Again,
Sorry to cut you off, Ms. March. With 2 fires and a hurricane, what have been done in Stony Brook to improve the conditions of the persons living there? You went over there recently for an inspection. Can you tell me what you saw that showed an improvement since you was there for the 2 fires and the hurricane?
There was no improvement. In fact, the conditions had worsened. There was no improvement.
So what is it that we are supposed to believe that is going to improve now once they become the sole owners of the property, whether they're the management or the owners? How can we trust that there is anything that's going to improve when nothing has improved in the last year is my total concern. Some of the pictures that I saw with the black mold on some of the walls, the fact that people are living in there and breathing those things and charging people, and actually charging people for rent is a problem for me on its face. What would you say, professionally and personally, is the city's obligation in this situation to the residents that live there at Stony Brook?
From a Florida Building Code perspective, let me just go there. I've noted the deficiencies. They are extreme. I am of the opinion personally and professionally that much of what I observed on Thursday, as I observed it last September and last August, should be deemed inhabitable.
When you decided to red tag and those particular doors, those 25 doors, what is it that you what was it about the situation that made you say, I can't see this and not respond? And that's what a red tag basically means. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. The conditions as we observed them, members of our team in code enforcement, were such that the initial intent when we went out was just to get an assessment and see, was not to red tag anything when we initially went out. The goal was to try to bring our findings back and figure out how we could work backwards into getting the places where they needed to be. However, the 30 units that we tagged were so extreme at the on-site that there was just a professional obligation to tag them at that point. The photos, I think, offer some summary as to what our findings were, but there were some indoor air quality issues that we were very concerned about. Black mold, mostly, let me rephrase that. The appearance of black mold in the bathrooms, the Duroc, the wet wall in the bathroom had not been installed properly, and as a result, it looked as if regular drywall was being used, subsequently creating the environment for the mold. The AC units went beyond just a lack of being clean. The filters had not been changed. Some of the residents reported that they weren't being provided filters or that they had to personally purchase them. We came across some residents who had even gone so far as to have bought or purchased their own window units. We had impact windows that were nailed shut, which is an impairment or impediment to some of the egress requirements. Some of the most alarming issues came by way of some of our findings in the attic spaces. We recognized that there were no fire separations. Almost all of the units, the extinguishers had been fired or expired back 2015. They had additionally no operable smoke detectors.
But you've been dealing with Millennia since 2017.
Yes, ma'am.
So basic things like a fire extinguisher could not be installed until their purchase had taken place, if you will. I mean, to me, the basic things like a fire extinguisher, you bought it in 2015, you done had 2 fires, and you still got outdated fire extinguishers. Something about you or in you would make you want to say, I got to make sure that everybody has a fire extinguisher and knows how to use it. So these are the types of things that are causing me concern. Some of the residents were saying, since this got to be a big issue on TV and everything, that they felt like they had been threatened, that they had actually been threatened. That too causes me pause. It's a lot to expect people to pay rent and live in those deplorable conditions. You're a general contractor and a building official. What is it about the items that are there, the 3 items that are going to improve the quality of life for the residents there?
Let me back into that question, if I may, by just simply reading off what our code stipulates or says about units that are either unsafe or unfit. They're delineated separately in our code. An unsafe structure is one that is found to be dangerous to the life, health, property, or safety of the public or the occupants of the structure by not providing minimum safeguards to protect or warn occupants in the event of a fire, or because the structure contains unsafe equipment or is so damaged, decayed, dilapidated, structurally unsafe, or such faulty construction or unstable in foundation that partial or complete collapse is possible. I think you saw some of that with the hurricane back in September, some of the interior conditions dilapidated and decayed. All we need as to check the box for a structure being unfit for human occupancy is simply a unsafe or unlawful environment because of the degree to which the structure is in disrepair or lacks maintenance, is insanitary, vermin or rat infested, contains filth and contamination, or lacks ventilation, illumination, sanitary or heating facilities, or other essential equipment required by this code, or because the location of the structure constitutes a hazard to the occupants of the structure or to the public. In that instance, when I use that rubric to determine whether or not to mark the buildings unsafe or the units, be it bed bugs, roach infestation, rats, mold, the lighting, the lack of ventilation, the lack of access with the windows and whatnot, it was those items and those check boxes that we relied upon when we began placing the sticker on the doors.
Ms. March, Mr. Richard stated that your department was in receipt of repairs they had made?
In defense, on Millennia's behalf and in defense of what Mr. Wayne Richards had said, he has notified our office that they've made repairs. And while I don't agree with the approach and the manner in which I've been directed, my trepidation with going out and doing another inspection is I'm not real sure as to how you get rid of a roach infestation or some of the items that are there in a matter of a few days. But because he has asked for the inspection and feels as if the units are up to par, we will do another inspection. What I will say is, and I share this with members of our team, there is some hesitation with me sending even our staff out to do additional inspections if in fact some of the indoor air quality issues have not been remedied.
So Ms. March, how is it, okay, if on your list of things that they needed to address was an infestation of insects, would that be taken care of in a couple of days? How is the mold taken care of in a couple of days? Some of the residents have reported that what has happened is the mold has been painted over and that there is not a real remedy of the problem that has actually taken place.
We have not been out to the unit to confirm or deny. Our office has gotten those same calls, and thus there are concerns. We were asked to come back out to the property as early as last Friday. We had just completed the inspection on Thursday, and at that point, there was just no way that the items could have all been addressed. For us, or for me, let me say that, for me, the preferred method by which to deal with this and make a determination as to whether or not the units are in fact or have in fact been remedied would have been for us to go through the 20 or so violations that I cited and ensured that they had all been corrected. And then once we got that reassurance, backed into the inspections. The request, however, has been that they have remedied some of those issues and they would like for us to inspect based on where they are now.
And in your professional opinion, there is really no way that that could have taken place, and in the opinion of the residents, that has not taken place. Earlier, I was asking, for example, abandoning the right-of-way for them to be able to build a community center. How is that going to improve the individual units that the people are living in? How is that going to improve the quality of life for the residents in Stony Brook?
I can't answer that. They would have to speak on that. The abandoned right-of-ways, the street parking requirements, the site plans, they aren't issues that I would be focused on right now. My concern is the life safety and welfare of the individuals in those units. And
in the site plan, are there any individual unit rehab?
We've been told that they would be remodeling the units to the tune of $11 to $13 million.
Have y'all seen the site plans yet?
The site plan is the site plan and references a lot of the exterior upgrades. There has been some very superficial plans given to us associated with build-outs. What would happen is, pending the approval, or once you've gotten the approval for all these items that they asked, they would submit a detailed plan to our office, and at that point, we would check it against Florida Building Code and issue permits, and I would be able to then, advise what the build-outs on those interior units would be.
My concern with issuing any type of permits or giving off-street parking, amending our off-street parking requirements. None of that, none of those things are going to improve the quality of life for the residents or their living conditions. And again, I say to you, simple things like the fact that you didn't buy a fire extinguisher since 2015 for the units, it doesn't lead me to believe that, you know, there's any goodwill taking place here at all. So I would be reluctant to say, hey, let them abandon our right of way so you can build a clubhouse and amend our off-street parking requirement. If anything, if you were rehabbing, gutting, building by building by building, and presenting us a transition plan of some sort, then I think that's a conversation that this council could have. But to say that we're more interested in the building of a clubhouse and the parking conditions as opposed to being interested in the inside living conditions of the residents there, I think that once one thing I always say about us, we give away whatever leverage we have right out of the box. And I would not like to see us give away our leverage to do right by the residents of Stony Brook by allowing them to have the things that they're asking for, and the residents of Stony Brook can't even get the things they're paying for. So those are some of my concerns, and I tried to write down all of my questions that I could have. Do you think that is there anything else that you can shed on this situation that might give us a better view of what is going on? I'm sure the residents are going to educate us a little bit more when they come up as well.
I could address any concerns that they have or any additional questions as they come up. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. March.
I have some questions.
One moment, please. Are you done with your questions?
I'll yield the floor for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Botel, you recognize.
I have some questions of Mr. Richards. Thank you. So my understanding is that your intention is to pretty much gut these units, put in new kitchens, new bathrooms, a new roof on all of these buildings. Is that correct?
First of all, the answer is yes, that is correct. Millennia has, I'm going to say it every time, you have to tell me to stop. Millennia is the manager. They get a fee to manage. Global Ministries owns it. Global Ministries gets the rent. However, because Millennia is acquiring it, going back to 2017, Millennia submitted plans to the city for the total rehab of not 50%, not 60%, but 100% of the units, which means the bathrooms will be ripped out back to the studs and then built out. The kitchens, the same. The roofs, the same. And the clubhouse that's going in the middle of the development would be right in the middle of your road. Hence, we need the road to build the clubhouse.
Now, my next set of questions might be better addressed to Mr. Adams and Mr. Crossman. I'm not sure, so you could stay there. They can just maybe coach you if you like. So I spent about an hour and a half out there at Stony Brook today. I met with Mr. Malik Lay over there and some of the ladies that are sitting behind him. So here's my question. I saw some of the work that you all have done. I know that you brought in teams from around the country to do some remediation of some of the units. It looks like you've done some good work in remediating some of the conditions that were there. But what I also learned was that, for example, the young lady immediately behind Mr. Lee has serious asthma and can't even breathe in her unit because apparently it's been painted over, the mold has been painted over. I guess my question is, the good work that you've done in those few units that I witnessed today, when will it continue? When will it be done there? The woman to her immediate right is, if I can share your personal information, is pregnant and obviously has some young children at home as well and doesn't want her physical condition to be impaired by the conditions that she's living in. She's had to move out of the of the unit that she's in, and they're trying to put her in a unit that is equally unfit. So my question to you is, how quickly will you be moving to remediate the situation in those units that you have not yet touched? And I guess dual questions, how many have you already done? How many units have you already modified to come up to par? And how many have you yet to do? And what's the timeline on that?
Give your name, please.
How are you? I'm Andrew Adams with the GC of Millennia. First and foremost, today was my first day on the property, and I have been flown in to basically observe what exactly has went on with our units and the progression of the red tag units that are currently we've got issues in. I personally walked 22 of the units, 15 of which are ready for reinspection from the city. My plan tomorrow is to walk the rest of the red tag units with a specific team that is basically to take care of life and safety, which is part of the airborne issues that I think are some of the biggest ones we have on the table.
Are the units, excuse me, Mr. Malik, I have to reach behind you there. Are your units red tagged? Okay. So those would be two that I would say, please,
Yes,
like right away, because those are critical health issues that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know of exact units of names and tenants and what the issues may have been.
But the ones that are red tagged are the ones that
Yes,
you're going to target
that's
right
my
away.
target first, and then we also go back with minor cosmetic issues that are, that have had work orders with the team that have set forth just to take care of cosmetically fixing drywall patches or stuff like that.
And the concern is that we not cover over the issues. Whether we have a disagreement as to whether it's real mold or fake mold or dirt or whatever, the issue is it's affecting her health.
Yes.
And so we want to be sure that we're not just patching something, covering something over. We're actually getting at the issue that's the underlying issue.
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings with the mold, for one, in the mechanical rooms, it was not mold. It's more of a dust that's accumulated within the HVAC system and the walls as well. Now, the surface mold that was on bathroom walls or ceilings has been treated with bleach and water, and then we also encapsulated it with mold. We also encapsulated it with mold block 2. Basically, is a kilts that is a spray that you basically primer the ceiling itself to encapsulate the mold, just to be able to stop any further growth of mold prior to the full renovation of the unit.
Because I can hear her breathe, struggling to breathe.
I fully understand that.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Ms. Motel, may I? May I? When the city had the meeting, I think it was Thursday, it was Millennia's position and mine that we're not going to argue with the city. Your attorneys were there, your code enforcement. The goal was life and safety of the citizens. Hence, we did not dispute your building official's findings. I will tell you that when our staff is going into these units, he's correct, and he's the expert. He's finding issues in two areas. The mechanical, that's where the air handler and the water heater is. There's usually a lot of dust because the air handler is sucking in, and it may not have been cleaned in a while. So he's finding issues there, and he's cleaning that. And then he's finding surface mold in some of the bathrooms. I saw some, I shared with you, on a shower curtain. I have seen some on a ceiling, and that's what he's addressing. That is cleaned, and then he's putting a blocker on it. So are there issues? Absolutely. And it's Millennia's goal to remedy the issues and not fight and say they're not there. The goal is to remedy any and all issues. And they're doing this out of their pocket. This is not GMF. GMF isn't giving them a penny. They're doing this on their dime and their dollar, and they're not getting any money. So they are losing on this, but they don't give a hoot. At this point, fix it, put everything you need to get it
because
right.
The goal of Millennia is ultimately to own it, and you'll make it in the
and when they own it, they've already submitted plans to the city back in 2017. The goal is to fix a building, move people to that building, and then tear that building apart and start all over again. Okay. That's the goal.
Now, I have a question for Cephas, if I could, please. So, Cephas, I think that maybe you have a PR problem because I have a feeling your role is the director of of resident relations. Is that right?
Resident advocate.
Resident advocate, right, resident advocate. I know that you've told me you were there for 2.5 weeks so far.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that maybe the residents don't know you're their advocate. So maybe maybe something needs to be done to have them be better informed about the fact that you're there for them.
Yes, ma'am.
So if they've come to you, they need to be assured that you're on their side.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I was kind of telling Malik as well, that I play the same role they play. I'm just not a lawyer. But I'm actually, the company has hired me to be their HUD. So I'm the person that holds the company accountable. So when I came to Stony Brook before, I've actually put down things. When I get phone calls, I've never received a phone call from any resident in here or at Stony Brook. Like you said, it might be misinformation that they don't know about me, that I exist, which is not their fault. But I'm here for them. I'm not here for the company. I'm not trying to make the company look bad. Like Wayne said, there's some issues that need to be taken care of. I've been in their position. I've talked to y'all before. For those who don't know, I actually have 15 cousins currently in prison because they were in that environment. I have 3 brothers that did penitentiary time of 27 years or more. I witnessed the death of my father as well, so I grew up in subsidized housing. I was the baby boy of 4 sisters that every last one of my family members has been in a situation due to the environment that they were growing up in. And I don't want that for them. They might be mad at me, but I don't understand
But
that.
in your role, if I
Yes,
come
ma'am.
back, if I come back there in a week, and can I count on the fact that and I'm going to make sure that her breathing is better because you've really fixed it, and she's feeling okay because she's in a home now where she's all right. I mean, I want to be able to count on that.
Yeah, I talked to the young lady today, and as soon as I talked to her, somebody came in the house. But then I was pulled by the crew right here to come and talk. But as soon as she talked to me today, right, ma'am, I brought somebody right in there, and that's what I'm supposed to do.
I have a quick question. Are there not any vacant units that have been, I know when I toured that property, there were vacant units that had been remodeled that were sitting and no one was occupying them. It was on the first floor. Ms. Brown toured with me, and we saw units that had been totally renovated that were sitting, and I'm told that they were used to show folks what was available, but it wasn't being provided to those. No one knows what I'm talking about?
I do.
There are some units that are available that are used to show, correct?
They have been occupied by residents recently. The city, Ms. March requested that 3 families be moved immediately. We promised to do that by Friday at 10 a.m., and we moved families into those units. In addition, there was another unit that we were very uncomfortable with on our own, and we moved the family out of their unit into one of the units to which you're referring. So those units are now occupied by families as we go into their old units.
Were the 2 women that we have with the severe asthma and the pregnancy, were they moved? Have they been moved into new units?
I don't know. I see Malik saying no. I do know that, once again, 4 families were moved Friday at 10 a.m.
So we don't have any units on site at this particular moment that you could immediately move those 2 very severe cases into?
We will have an answer by 10 a.m. tomorrow. I don't believe so, and the reason is we've been moving people, families, from units into these fixed-up units. So I don't believe the answer is yes, but I'm going to inquire, and I'll have an answer by 10 a.m. I'd like to give it to your attorney to attorney, or should I give it directly to the chair?
You can come up, Ms. Godot. The other question that I have is, in instances such as this, there are no emergency dollars to put them in temporary housing until such time as housing is made available? Point of order, please. I understand that this is contentious. Please. Is there no provision? I remember asking for assistance prior to the shakeup in the Palm Beach County Housing Authority to see if there was any housing that they could place people into. Do we have that ability. And I'm sorry, I just need to know, you know, we're putting everything on Millennia, but where is GMF in all of this? There is no, please, where is GMF in all of this, and how do we hold them accountable? Because you all remember that they came before this council many, many moons ago with all of the pie in the sky promises about what they were going to do, and none of that transpired. So then you have a situation where you have a Millennia coming in, inheriting all of the slum-like capabilities, but with no real authority, because you're managing, but you don't own. And how do you force a management company to handle what would typically be handled by an owner? I just need to know the answer to that question.
This is very similar to an owner in Tennessee owning a house or an apartment complex in Riviera Beach, and they hire a local company. They pay them 5%. Here are your couple dollars. Manage it. That is the same situation here. We are going to continue to aggressively repair these units. I will have an answer to your attorney by 10 a.m. tomorrow whether we can find 1 or 2 units to move. I think, Malik, are these your two? The two that are referring. Do we know who they are? Do we know the two?
Point of order, please, point of
I'm
order,
sorry.
please.
I will have an answer by 10 a.m. whether there are units that they can be moved into. Once again, I know that 4 families were moved in an emergency situation into these set-aside units. I will inquire whether there are 1 or 2 more units. But if I may, Ms. Hubbard, you asked a question, how will a $13.5 million improvement benefit the residents? I'm going to answer that. By Millennia owning the property, Millennia has the dollars and the ownership responsibility to maintain the units. They're going to rip out the drywall that's in the bathrooms. They're going to rip out the drywall that's in the kitchen. It's all being ripped out to the studs. Durock cement board will go in the bathrooms, will go in the wet areas of the kitchen. The roofs will be ripped off every building. Every building will get a new roof. It's a $13 million improvement. And Millennia will own it. Millennia will have final say. But right now, they are simply a contract company that's doing their best to maintain it.
2 questions, Ms. to that end. How long have Millennia been managing Stony Brook? How many years?
I've been told it's approximately 1.5 years. To finish answering it, a few months after they began to manage it is when they realized they'd be purchasing it, and they submitted a plan to your city for a $13 million improvement. A few months after.
Is that the 3 items that you referenced earlier? Is that the $3.5 million project that you're referring to?
The $13 million project includes a 3,100 square foot community center that we built in the center of Stony Brook, right on Stony Brook Road. Hence, they need the right of way because they would have to maintain it.
But I'm asking you, the
yes
site plan that you said was submitted along with the abandonment of the right of way issue and to build the community center, is that the $13.5 million project that you're referring to?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, and we will further attest that the $13 million project is the full renovation of all 100% of the 216 units.
Your site plan that you submitted to the city in 2017 indicates that you are doing a full renovation of Stony Brook.
Well, I just told you that. Jeff.
Wait a minute. Listen.
Jeff, I'm asking your...
No, you say I just told you that. But no, that is not what you told us. And that's why I am further asking you the question, are we talking one in the same so that I won't be able to assume anything? And that's why I was asking you, are we referring to one in the same?
I'm honestly confused. The $13 million project includes the full renovation of 216 units at Stony Brook.
Okay.
Along with new roofs for all the buildings, along with a 3,100 square foot community center. with 8 handicap parking spaces that you don't have now, and significant landscaping and security enhancements and improvements.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you this, and I guess it could be a yes or no, and I can ask staff. The site plan that was submitted in 2017 included the things that you just enumerated.
Jeff, you have a site plan. Am I correct that it includes that?
I'm just asking.
Yes, Councilwoman, the site plan submitted does encompass redevelopment of the entire project. I hear 2017 keep coming up. One of the items that we're still working through was the parking item, and the original site plan is truly dependent on both the abandonment request, being that the community building is being proposed in the center of the existing city right-of-way, in addition to the fact that the text amendment is required in order for the project to move forward with the current parking ratios. So if either one of the ordinances don't successfully move forward, then the site plan could not be approved as presented. So all 3 items would have to be approved.
And I understand that building the community center is contingent upon us abandoning the right-of-way. But what I'm saying to you is the ultimate 100% renovation of Millennium is vaguely there. And that's why I was thinking that he's talking about there's 2 different things going on here. The 3 things listed up there was just the site plan, that was the lipstick on the pig, and that ultimately after that's done, they in turn would submit a site plan that would encompass the things he enumerated on. So it was being talked about as if there was 2 different things going on, as if once these things take place, then in turn they would come back and submit a more detailed, if you will, site plan for those for the renovation of those units. Right. So that's what I was trying to.
So the site plan approval is the legal process that would allow Millennia to come and apply for a building permit. So the building permit phase would follow any site plan approval process, and that would have the details as far as specific building footprints, details for renovations, things of that nature.
So how are you going to issue somebody a building permit if you don't know what they are going to build?
Well, the site plan information contains some of that fundamental information. The unit composition is provided in the site plan as far as unit types. So the fundamental, the bones are there, and the building permit process really gets into the specific details as far as how that implementation will move forward. The ultimate, well, the fact right now is, again, if the ordinances don't move forward, if those aren't approved, then the site plan can't be approved. And if the site plan can't be approved, then any sort of building permit renovation at this magnitude would not be possible because of the fact that the site is considered legal non-conforming. So okay. It would have to have a full site plan approval process.
I'll say a couple of things to this end. One, in doing substantial history research about the history of Millennium, they don't have a very good report card, and based on other properties that they own and projects that they now own, they don't seem to get a very good report, number one. Number two, if you were the manager, if GMF hired you to be the manager of this property, what were you doing that year and a half that you were there? Why weren't you managing the apartments? Why weren't you taking care of the apartments? Why weren't you fixing up the apartments? Why weren't you addressing the needs? If somebody hires a management company to take care of their property, they should be expected to do just that. So the period in which you had control of those apartments, you did nothing, to the extent that they caught a fire and you still didn't buy any fire extinguishers. So I say that to say this, to tell us that if we give you this, then you'll give us that, is utterly ridiculous. If you were going to do anything, you had a lot of opportunity to do just some basic stuff. Just some basic stuff in the time GMF hired you to be the property manager. You did not do what they paid you to do, if that is the case indeed. So, again, I have stated my concerns with us moving forward with any of the ordinances and the things that they are requesting of us, because the people that they request payment from on a regular basis, they have not done that. I do, I'm sure that Mr. Lee probably, I don't know, can answer this. What about the fact that residents are allowed to put their money into escrow until their units are done and fixed right, as opposed to giving it to people who aren't putting it back into the building? Is that still an option? The lady, the men, the gentlemen from legal aid, do those people have that option? Yes, because I think that's something that I know have been done, and I want to know, why isn't that an option for these people?
And I want to say, good evening. My name is Malik Lay. I represent, I'm an attorney from Watson Lay law firm here in West Palm Beach. I represent some of the named parties that I gave Mr. Masters a copy of, and I gave Millennia a letter of representation last week. Today, specifically as to what you're speaking on, I did hand deliver. They've all received it. Mr. Masters has a copy as well, and I emailed to the Building Codes Council and a couple of other people a letter pursuant to the state statute that does state that basically it's a notice to cure, notice a demand to repair after a certain amount of time. If they do not do that, then they can in fact withhold rent. That is something that is available. As we only have 11 to 12 people specifically named, some of the people who are afraid of retaliation didn't want to put their name on there, so obviously there's no notice component to that. We would wish that everyone would, but those people that are on the list are going to withhold their rent until their units are actually fixed. One of the things that I was hoping that someone would ask, though, is in the state of Florida, you have to have a specific license to be able to inspect mold. You also have to have a different, more specific license to be able to remove that mold. So a question for the gentleman who came from out of town to inspect this would be whether or not he has the necessary licenses, and for those people that did come in to fix the units within just a couple of days, do they have those exact same licenses? Because if they did, they just burn, or if they don't, then they just burn calories in a hot building breathing mold also. Because clearly if they're not licensed, they didn't have the proper equipment to protect themselves as well. So that would be a question that I would leave for everyone else here. But to answer the specific question, as of today, they were given notice. Because there's a HUD component to some of these people, even though they can be moved into temporary lodging, which is something that I think that was brought up, the units that they are leaving, they are to return back to that unit, which is the purpose of the statute, is to actually fix the unit that they came from. So the letter that I served today, essentially, for all the promises that could possibly or potentially be made, gives them 15 days to show up, or 20 days to show up. And if they don't, then it'll be at least 12 people that aren't giving them their money until they do.
In addition to the certifications for mold inspections, were there air quality testings done as well by a specialized contractor?
I can't answer that myself because I don't necessarily have an affiliation with the city. The basis of our representation, we planned on doing that, but
I'm asking council as well, since you cannot Do we know whether or not we brought in an air quality inspector into?
Unaware of that.
Unaware?
Sure. Quite similar to when the first inspection was done. I believe they're similar.
So I have a novel idea, I'm just wondering. We had a situation. Well, let me state this. It was certainly my intent to say move them immediately until such time as the repairs could be made and they would return to their homes. Broadmoor, this rings Broadmoor all over again to me. And so is there an opportunity, and the question would be whether or not there is a large complex that could assume the number of residents that are currently in Stony Brook, tear it down, start over, place them temporarily until such time, please, until such time as Millennia can make its investment. It just seems to me the right thing to do. I just don't know how we accomplish it by placing, you know, the number of tenants that are currently residing in the property in another space. But this is what's ringing for me as I sit and I listen and I recall the conversations with tenants that I did visit with, and just hearing it. Right. It just seems to me that that's the right thing to do if we could possibly get to that point. I just don't know what's available here in the city as it relates to inventory that could actually accommodate such a action. I believe I heard
an idea,
Mr.
Madam Chair.
I heard Mr. Davis, but go ahead.
I heard idea. I'll pause and wait. I defer.
One thing that you know I had suggested to our team is that we put an all call to Section 8 property. You have an online service. First thing that we're going to need is a list of the composition of the families in there, and we put that out on the website of the Section 8. So if a man has,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
We can't do it that way. In speaking to the Housing Authority has to have, they have to have the authorization from their board to even open up housing outside of what's in the confine. I have been working on this and checking.
And I too, Madam Chair, and have worked with and for the housing authorities, Palm Beach County and West Palm Beach, and sat on the board with Riviera Beach. Some of the things that they can do is you have a certain perimeter outside of, like the housing authority in Riviera Beach. They have access 12 miles outside of where the footprint of that place. But I'm saying with HUD in place, regional in Miami, and we talked to them about this voucher-based facility, can we transfer these to whomever have the spot to put the individual families? And of course, we could and would have to work with Miami HUD. We would have to work with whoever is the owner of that facility, whatever investor might be taking and accepting Section 8 for certificates at that time. We could, you know, try and place people in that manner. And for the extreme situations, we can put people into the extended stay hotels to get them out of where they are. So just like I said, just an idea, and in working with the County Housing Authority and Riviera Beach Housing Authority, I'd like to see something happen that we can move people out of the deadly situation that they're in.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Davis and
Thank
then the
you.
mayor.
What I would say is we rolled back in 2011-12 year, fiscal year, when the famous minister of Global's ministry came before this city, stood and sat in a chair right before this council, well, not this council, but a council at that time, and made these promises that we would not be in this position that we're addressing today. The biggest question that came up as was what was healthy, what was habitable, and all the same conversations we're having now, that board was having then. Had the opportunity to walk every single property in Stony Brook's community, I call it, community, and met some wonderful people. And one of the things that was always said, you hear it all the time, they say it wasn't mold, it was people not keeping their houses clean. But I beg to differ, and that's how I met Crystal. She has one of the cleanest houses you ever meet in your life. She's a very clean individual. I did witness at that time, not this property manager, painting over a situation. We then, some constituents reached out to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, and at the time I think the gentleman named Mr. Johnson, he did show up to the subsequent meeting here and heard the concerns of the residents, heard the concerns of the council, and at that time, that's as far as it went. You know, we talked about how we was gonna work together, but that didn't happen. One of the things I do believe that need to take place is this board having a joint meeting with the Palm Beach County Housing Authority Board and sitting across with them, not sending a message, but having a conversation about how can we work together to make sure, for one, that the mold test was actually done, right? Because in 2011-12, they said the same question. There's mold, but everyone had a conversation without an efficient test being conducted, whether it was certified or not. There was never mold test done in 2011-2012. And now we're back into the same situation. Now, not to say that the current property manager don't want to do the right thing, but what I'm here seeing is I see that they made the right step with him. The two gentlemen did have a conversation here. But I do believe this board needs to have a meeting, joint meeting with the Palm Beach County Housing Authority Board to figure out a plan together to get these folks in a very healthy situation tomorrow, as soon as we can. Subsequently, the current property manager who's potentially executing a transition to purchase the property, there should be some mold testing going on simultaneously so we can know what apartments effectively really do have mold. And what is going to be the plan to address that? We know once you get mold, we know it's been there, there's no big secret. But let's give us the aggressive strategy. You said you're going to spend the $13 million to gut it out. We hear that. Put that plan together, present that plan before the council, and we can move forward with that. But the best thing we need to do is have a joint meeting with the Palm Beach County Housing Authority to get these families into a healthy situation today. Because one of the things I learned through this process before as a resident advocate, then a council person, is that as we get closer to the school year, I didn't feel comfortable with the situation when we had students living in unfortunate hotels, not having kitchens, not having access to food, and then having the issue traveling back and forth to their current school or potential new school as they get moved out of their zone. So school, once again, we're in the same time. Ms. Brown, you was there with me. You know, we walked over 200 units together in the sun, never made a decision to run for office at the time. It was about doing the right thing for the people. But we need to have a joint meeting, have staff reach out to Palm Beach County Housing Authority and say, listen, we here again. We know they got a new executive director. It didn't get done back then. Let's do something about it now. But that's just my suggestion. For time's sake, we need to make sure there's a mold test done, a meeting scheduled as fast as we can with the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, because we can talk all day, but they can help us with those vouchers and temporarily transition those vouchers from project vouchers to housing vouchers until the Stony Brook situation is done. I think that can be a great plan that we can do throughout Palm Beach County, because we won't be limited to Riviera Beach. We can expand these residents to other areas in West Palm Beach and other Lake Park, whatever communities that do allow the Section 8 vouchers. But until that takes place, we'll have this conversation again and again and again and again. But we need to have a joint meeting with the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. We need to have a mold test, and we need to allow the current property managers to continue working with staff to figure out what buildings we're going to gut, how fast you're going to gut the buildings out, what is that timeline, what measures you're going to put in place to reassure that the city's position before abandoning the road to do what we need to do. I think just showing in good faith until you prove me wrong. I'm not saying you won't do it right, but we've heard this story before. I believe that you would do the right thing in the right situation, but it's up to this board and other boards to work together, make sure that we all work together to tell a good story that Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, and Millennial can actually do the right thing on behalf of people. And I think that's a story that we need to focus on. But it has to start with getting the housing authority to the table. They control the vouchers. There are certain conditions, yes, that we do understand from the federal level. Have Congressman Hastings' office there as well, to make sure that we have all the conversations from all the way to the federal government to how do we get these project vouchers addressed to Section 8 vouchers. Because we can keep talking all day long, but we need to get that meeting. That meeting has never taken place with the two boards having it. That's the only thing I haven't seen happen since 2011. Not to say nothing won't happen, but that never did happen.
I would like to inquire of my colleagues. We have had a lengthy discussion asking questions. I would like to pause now and hear from the residents to give them an opportunity to speak to us. Is anyone opposed to that?
Well, I'm not, Madam Chair. I just want to make one
I
quick
understand.
comment.
I understand, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not, but I don't want anybody to go away thinking, I hijacked anything, but I wanted Mr. Davis to know that I have contacted the Riviera Beach Housing Authority and the county to see about contacting someone down at HUD so that we might be able to do the transfer. I don't know how the county can play a role, the County Housing Authority, but possibly they can as well have some locations available as well. So I just wanted to mention that and put that on the record so everybody will
Appreciate
know.
I think that we also should be sensitive to the fact that folks may not necessarily want to travel down to Miami if, housing becomes available. We want to try to stay within our communities, and I know that you mentioned some of that. I just want us to.
I was talking about
Yeah.
That's where our regional office
I
is.
understand. I just
Not that
didn't
they
want them
wanted
to make anything available.
No, I didn't want them.
Understanding
They
that.
are in charge of all the southeast region,
Right.
so they can help us with the transferring of the vouchers
Okay.
into Section 8 certificate.
Thank
That's
you.
what I meant.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'll be very, very,
Madam Chair,
very brief. Go
the
ahead.
time, are we still under the 10 o'clock time?
Madam Clerk? We are not. Mr. Mayor?
I'll be very brief. This has been an ongoing situation with management, period. I've had conversations with Millennium in the past. I haven't had any conversation with them lately in several months. I don't think anyone can deny that we were there. We were on the ground for week after week after week after week. At this point, when I look at, and I mentioned it to Millennium some time ago when we first met here, I think the building code, building official, Ms. March, was pretty much on point as it relates to, and also Councilwoman Hubbard. There's been time, we shouldn't even be here tonight. If management or whoever had been on the job, we shouldn't be talking about mold again. We shouldn't be talking about infestation. We shouldn't be talking about roofing. We shouldn't be talking about all this stuff. And I do want the residents to know that I'm Facebooking Live, and I can tell you that more people have tuned in about the Stony Brook issue than any other time we've had this. So I want you to know that the community is concerned about what goes on there. You do have community support, tremendous. And one of the person remarked that this probably wouldn't even be here on this dais tonight if the media had not got involved and had not exposed what was going on there now or what we're hearing about. So, I keep going back to a statement that Ronald Reagan, the former president, made. Hold on just a second, please. And please, I don't do that to you. Please, be respectful. He went to Berlin. He said, you know what? It's just time to tear that wall down. Point blank period. No one has to say this. But I went to Dunbarton Village, which used to be. Dunbarton Village to me wasn't nearly as bad as Stony Brook. They made a decision to just tear it down, stop putting new wine in old bottles, and build a brand new Dunbarton Village, and it looks great. I think it's time that someone ought to have a discussion and just get rid of it. Just tear it down and build a brand new Stony Brook, period. They did it in West Palm Beach. We can do it here. You know, we've protested. I've gone to Washington, D.C. I've met with HUD. We met with Miami. We've done it all. It's just time to look at, is it really worth keep trying to renovate, trying to fix this and do this and do that? Let's just flip the page. Let's do what West Palm Beach did. Brand new Stony Brook. And that's where I am with it.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you
Mayor.
very much, Madam
Madam
Chair.
Clerk, would you please begin calling the citizens, please?
The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed. Nikita Felder Davis, Charlotte Darville, Darlene Cruz.
Full disclosure, Nikita Felder is one of my goddaughters.
Hello.
Good evening.
Excuse me. My main concern is, and with them saying about with what they want to do and everything, they came to my apartment and they did whatever they were supposed to do. I feel like I'm dying right now. I was in my apartment while they were cleaning out the mold and all of that. But it's been over a year and nothing has changed. And I don't have any good record of you guys. Nothing good to say. And you stating about the other company, y'all are in front of them. Y'all are here for them. So we have to look at you guys for everything that we need. The Advocate, I never knew anything about him. This is my first time. And I told him, you're here for us. Why are you over there? We over there. You never came and said anything to us, never introduced yourself. I didn't know who you were. But like it was said, I don't understand why is Stony Brook holding on. What is the reason? It's nothing, murder, fires, drugs. Everything is going on. Why are we holding on to Stony Brook? What is so important? We're dying. Our kids are dying. That's what's important. That's what should matter. And it upset me because my son is 4 and he's ill, and it's like they're not doing anything. It took all of this to happen for code enforcement to come for us to even see these people. The day before code enforcement come, all of a sudden y'all came out the woodworks. Where were y'all a year ago? During this whole year that we needed all of these repairs and all of this done. It don't make sense. It's not fair. Y'all can live in our apartments for 24 hours, you wouldn't survive. They came into my apartment because it's clean. I have to keep plugins, Fabuloso. I'm clean. You look at my wall unit, it's black mold, literally. But they cleaned it. They did it. But it's still today, and they did it on Saturday. For me taking pictures, I can barely breathe today. So if I'm one of the 15 apartments that y'all came in, you need to be fired because then nothing was done. You need new people. That's all I got to say. Y'all, we need a change, seriously. And if y'all are the people that can help us, I'm begging for my community, for y'all to please help us. They ain't had no good record of doing anything to any other companies that they done ran. What's gonna make us better? What's gonna make us different? Why are we different? And that's it.
Charlotte Darville, Darlene Cruz, Cindy March.
Ms. Cruz, Ms. Darville. Is Ms. Darville still here?
Darlene Cruz, Cindy March, Legal Aid Society.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to say something very quickly. Back in 2016, we did a community protest at the Stony Brook complex. We were demonstrating on a daily basis. We made several demands of GMF, which is Global Ministries Foundation. I call them the scum lord that owned the property. Millennia, however, came in and without a hesitation joined our crusade, if you will, for a lack of term, and put in over a $20,000 children's play area out of their own money. Out of their own money. They didn't even have to do it. There was AC repair being done. They were putting in brand new units. Yes, there was mold. Yes, there were rats and roaches, but we continued demonstrating. Now, I will say this on the record. The tenants that were in the back hanging out while we were out there monitoring the properties were, for one, they were undesirables. Many of them did not live on the property. And yes, they were tearing Stony Brook apartments up. And I've seen it with my own eyes. We asked for 24-hour security. At that particular time, we demanded security on the property to stop people who didn't live there from coming onto the property and causing further damage. I just looked at a plan tonight that I had never seen before. A plan was given in 2017, but it's not the plan that I'm looking at right now. That plan was a beautiful plan and could have been implemented, but we don't know what happened with that. This plan tonight that I'm looking at is an even better plan, and I don't know where that's gonna go. I don't know what's gonna happen with that plan. But what I wanted to say is there's a youth center on the grounds of Stony Brook Apartments, and I believe it was donated by Urban Impact to give the children there something to do. That was, again, another organization coming in and donating dollars to assist with youth outreach, if you will. How will they be affected with this $20 million plan? Did they get rid of it? They ran them out of there?
Ms. Cruz, make your comment.
Okay, I've just been informed that they're no longer there. That was another issue that I had. What were you going to do to accommodate Urban Impact and their presence on the property? And that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you for listening to me.
Cindy March, Legal Aid Society, Bessie Brown.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cindy March. I've been to several meetings here. Yes, I'm very rude. I'm very obnoxious because you know why? I'm tired. Because you know what? You all don't even see the bigger picture like I said before. These people smiling and laughing at us because we fighting among each other. Y'all go over there when y'all want to vote. Y'all go over there when y'all want to put somebody in office. But these millenniums here, not the millenniums over there, they're the ones going to keep you in office. Because y'all looking at them because they low income or they probably not working and they probably up in a housing. These people don't need to live like they're in a third world country. And then you get a man up here, and I'm not racist by no means. You get this Hispanic man up here, every time you have a meeting, using the N-word. Who does that? And then your hypothetical answer to you, I don't have no respect for you. I'm sorry. You know why Dunbar is up and running? Because they're not arguing about the same thing over and over again in a city meeting. They getting the job done. And for you to be the mayor, you need to learn to be a leader. Stay on Facebook, filming Lady Marge. Stay on Facebook, filming her. Okay? You give her praises here, but you throw rocks and hide your hand. And then you got these old pill-popping people want to run for office, and they don't know nothing about the city at all. You better keep Lynn Hubbard here. Because one thing about Lynn, she's going to speak up what's right. And she might not disagree with March all the time, but she's going to let you know how she feels. And I'm not pointing fingers at nobody, but you. Because I have seen you on Facebook, and I said once, and I said again, blood has always been thicker than water on any given day. Give these people somewhere to stay. If y'all can spend 40-something thousand on a police van or 16 vans, y'all can put these people somewhere to stay temporarily. Enough is enough, because I have nieces in Stony Brook. Don't forget where you come from. We all come from the hood. But don't treat these people like they hood rats. Get the job done.
Legal Aid Society, Bessie Brown, Willis Williams.
Good evening. My name is Takesha Miles, and I'm the supervising attorney of the Fair Housing Project Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. And I want to address one of the issues that was just brought up about urban youth impact. Urban Youth Impact Community Partners in our office, the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County, were providing services on site in the community center. And in April, Ms. Lee decided to terminate our ability to come on property. So we were trying to be helpful and be assistance to the residents and empower them about their rights. However, the management company decided to terminate our ability to come on the property and to serve the clients. So if the city decides to move forward with Millennia, I think that having access to community partners and to community organizations is only a benefit for the residents, and by no means should be prevented, especially by the management company. Thank you.
Bessie Brown, Willis Williams, Bonnie Larson.
Oh, good evening. I don't know what they have done because, as a matter of fact, I have a niece that lives in Stony Brook. She told me she was sleeping in her car because she had no air with 2 kids. Well, I said, well, what happened? What about the no screens in the windows? You can't open the windows up. Now, and then kept lying that we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it this time. We're gonna fix it. Well, I told her she doesn't have to live like that. She can come stay with me because none of family is family. But the idea about it is that now they literally ran off all the people that was helping the residents, because I had actually been to a couple of meetings out there, and like she said, Youth Impact, and then they had another young man from some kind of partnership. They ran them all off. And whatever this plan is to put this community center right in the middle of what, I don't care about the community center. You take care of these people and their health in these apartments. And this is one thing. We need to stop shutting off and closing off things, you know, to our people, because what do we ever gain? And it's just to the point where I'm just so sick and tired of people coming in here, because I was back here sitting in the same place when Global Ministries came in here. You know, and they were going to do this and they were going to do that. Did nothing. Same thing happened when they came in there. They were going to do this and did that. Nothing. I actually knocked on doors and went into the young lady closes up her bathroom because you can't use it because it overflows. I mean, you know, that's totally ridiculous. And that was like last year in 2017. And I'm going to tell you something. I lived in Stony Brook in 73 to about 80 to 78 or something. But the thing about it, it was not like that. And I had a door problem. It was from the rain and water. I wrote HUD myself, and I was very young. I was like 18 or 19. But I wrote HUD myself. HUD took the same letter, sent back to Stony Brook. I got my door repaired. You know, these children, they need to learn your rights and don't allow people to treat you like you're nobody. You're nobody, and I'm so sick and tired of these people coming in here and sitting with our council people and lying to them, and our residents are suffering. Now, it's time for you all to make a decision to help these people and mean it.
Willis Williams, Bonnie Larson, Edna House.
Good evening again, Willis Williams, River Beach.
Good evening.
Don't want to beat a dead horse, but I concur with most of the residents who want to do what they can do to help. I know it's not a burden of yours, but as your leaders in this community, we do need to assist the residents of Stony Brook, because most of them are young, single-family women who have not the whereabouts to know all of the ins and outs of housing. So the people give them the vouchers, and they go get some Stony Brook, and there they go. I concur with the mayor about the city of West Palm Beach with Dunbar Village. Dunbar Village was probably built in the 30s, but at some point, they decided enough was enough. You cannot close a part of a building off with infestation such as roaches and rats and expect the rest of that building that those roaches and rats are not going to go to it. I got 22 years in the hotel industry as well as public housing. back in the 70s, myself, former Commissioner Mary Hooks, and Mr. Roundtree, Phelps Roundtree, we opened Stony Brook when it first opened. A gentleman by the name of Joseph Porton and Swanky built those two buildings, Broadmoor and Stony Brook. So I'm very rehearsed on Stony Brook. One of the major problems that you have in Stony Brook is where they took the air conditioning, young man that flew in here from, he's sleepy, he's tired. But they flew him in here
That's a time
and
zone
trying
for
to put a pig, put the lips, what you call it, the lips on a pig, but you cannot get right ventilations in those apartments because of the way the air conditioning was stuck in there. You got to go back and start from square one. Either you tear the building down, as Councilman mentioned, or you take everybody out of that building and you do one building at a time. Now, you're going to have roaches and rats going everywhere else, but you better believe that that's the only two ways you can do it. But I suggest if you tear Stony Brook down, let it stay in the industrial area like it has been in the past. No one should have never been allowed to let residents go on that industrial site. Thank you.
Bonnie Larson, Edna House, Douglas Lawson.
Bonnie Larson, a lot of us were here when Global Ministries came in and they promised us the moon. Everything would be beautiful. We wouldn't even need to have police force over there because they were going to police it. Well, look what happens. Now you've got Millennia come in. They're supposed to be managing it and they want to buy it. Okay, you still have all the problems that we ever had over there, even worse. They're asking tonight to do a lot of concessions for Millennia, who does not own the property. Now, if you don't own the property, we don't even want to talk to you. You either want to buy it or you don't, and you'll fix it up. Because right now we got Global Ministries, who is really responsible. Then you got Millennia. Everybody's involved, and no one's doing anything. They're asking tonight mold. Mold comes from somewhere. You can't just paint over it. You can't just wash it off with bleach. It means something is leaking somewhere. Tremendously expensive, so I don't know how the people who live there feel, but it might just be better to tear the whole thing down. Renovation is very, very expensive. Tear the whole thing down and redo it. Have a nice place over there. Have a model apartments over there. They're asking tonight for a concession. There are 216 units, all to be rehabbed. All right. They have 248 parking spots currently. That's about 1 per unit. A lot of ladies over there with children. As I said at the CRA, we can't go back to 1950s codes. The new code says that you have to have 432 parking spots. Okay? Ladies over there with children, they have to have a car. Their children have friends. Their children get cars. It's going to create a very hostile environment over there if you go back to 1950 codes and say 1 parking spot per unit. You can never have family over. You can never have friends over. No need for a community center because you can't invite anybody over. So let's not go back to 1950 codes. And then you'll have to do it for everybody else also. They're asking for a road to be developed so they can build a 3,100 square foot community building. Again, what's the purpose? You can't have company. You can't even have your own family. So that makes no sense whatsoever. Promise all these things to people who don't even own it? No, don't even consider that. We've seen what happens, and these people are in worse condition than they ever were before. So no, we're not going to go back to 1950 standards. We're not going to set a precedent where you only have to have 1 parking spot per person. Imagine it if you only had 1 parking spot. It doesn't work that way. These people deserve to live like normal people, and it's just not happening over there. But rehab is very, very expensive. Tear it down, fix it up, and let them have a nice place to live. Thank you. But no concessions to someone who doesn't even own the property. Thank you.
Edna House, Douglas Lawson, Crystal Lewis.
strength. I'm sorry, I had to look at them for a second, you guys. I'm 24 years old. I've been living in Stony Brook for about 2 years now. I am the vice president of the Stony Brook Tenant Union. You guys, it has crushed my heart to see what I have saw in some of these apartments, and I'm gonna directly speak to you guys. It has crushed my heart for you guys to allow this place to run to hell the way that you have in this past year, and believe and can look me in the eyes and tell me that it's okay. I have sat and watched a corrupt company lie and cover up what has been going on for the past year. We are to expect the corruption of this organization to now give us heaven after it has given us hell. We will not sit here and believe in the same slumlords to give us the better treatment than their other properties. Sorry, guys. You can give us proper fire control, but we are supposed to believe in this very vague site plan. Just as the rest of the slumlords lie to get what they want, I am almost 100% sure you guys are going to lie as well. I have sat here and protest, and protest, and protest. That's my vice president right there. I mean, that's my president right there, Crystal Stokes. We have watched people cry because of the kind of conditions they've, and not only have they cried, they've told this corrupt company, and this corrupt company has done nothing but turned their backs. And now that they see the fire's up, they send out quality control. Oh, let's hurry up and fix it to keep them quiet. Oh, guess what? We're talking. They hear us. You will not own this land. Not while I still have breath in my body, and I'm only 24, so I'm kind of young. This has to be the saddest case of neglect upon a large group of individuals. There's a lot of children in Stony Brook, way more children than adults. Where you live? Where do you live?
Ma'am.
Because I know you guys don't stay anywhere like Stony Brook, and you never would, and you would never put your children in something like that. Oh yeah, I'm mad. We're all mad. You should be ashamed of yourselves, and we don't want you here. We don't want you as a company. I beg of you guys to do what you can to help these people. When I leave here, I'm going back out there to talk to some more people and try to, do what I can to ease whatever I can do. Please, I beg of you guys, that's all.
Douglas Lawson, Crystal Lewis, Olivia Mundy.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Masters, Chairperson Davis, and Council. My name is Douglas Lawson. I'm a business owner here in Riviera Beach. And I thank Chairperson Lynn Hubbard for calling this meeting tonight, because this issue has been going on for a number of years. I have a number of clients that actually live in Stony Brook currently, and they've been telling me about these issues for the past 5 years in Riviera Beach. The concerns and issues that they've addressed are essentially based on global that has been the problem for the city. Millennium took over a year and a half ago, and they're the management company. Understanding a little bit about real estate, I understand that they are limited with the number of things that they can truly do. So to spend the amount of money that they would like to spend on the project without having ownership in it is going to be difficult for them. So genuinely, we have to work together as a council and as a city to figure out this project together. My project right now, I have a project on Blue Heron and F. I have 8 units, 4 that I can make available immediately to assist some of the residents over there if they want to transfer vouchers. In the next week, I can make an additional units available for our residents if they want to transfer vouchers for a temporary time frame. Simply because I understand that the safety of these citizens is required. So I don't even need them over a long extended period of time. They just can come over for the time frame that it takes to renovate these units to be able to have a safe environment to live in. So if that's something that the council can work on. I know Council Chairperson Davis said she'd be reaching out to the board to find out if this is an option to transfer these vouchers. But please, let's look into that immediately. Because right now, the renovations that Millennium is working on right now is going to take some time because they do not have ownership of it. They're asking for assistance, help, and direction. That's why they presented this to the board. So understand, we have to work together as a council, as a city, and as a team with Millennium. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Crystal Lewis, Olivia Mundy, Vatosa Bythewood.
Good evening, Reverend Master and the City
Hi, Crystal.
Council.
Good evening, Crystal.
I'm Crystal Lewis. I'm standing here today because I started the organization. I've been out there for 8 years now, so I'm proof, and I'm the leader, and I got a lot of people standing behind me. And what I would like to say, we've all been stereotyped in our neighborhood, and a lot of you know me because I work at Publix and I've served you people, so you guys know that everybody out there isn't bad. You know, I've been helping out with this community for 8 months now. I wouldn't have started this organization if the property manager, Mrs. Lee, wasn't so downright disgusting. You know, I feel like she came in to do their dirty work, you know. My thing is, renovation, that's not an option. Fixing up Stony Brooks is not an option. We all know that if it's not righteous, it's not right. Our health comes before anything else. I say unto you, when I started this organization and it hit national newsline, I finally met the people who say they're behind it. But if you guys, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if in school, if you didn't have a good report card, you didn't pass. We do not want Stony Brooks in the hands of Millennium, for one. We haven't seen the change. 2, if you had it for a year and a couple months, you've done nothing. 3, now that you guys say, oh, if you give us $13 million, we'll do this and that. My thing is, don't raise our rent if we're still in the same conditions we're in. I've been getting violation notes from this and that, the third. You know, everything they have been doing since they've been in that office has been illegal. Towing our cars on the property, illegal. I mean, we lost so much money behind it. I was running for assistant deli manager. I was a contender. I had to step down, not because of me, but because of my people. I would no longer serve your city if your city don't serve us. You understand? We deserve proper treatment. We deserve equal rights, and we need to stop being looked down on. As you can see, we've been in distress for over 8 years now. I have kids. I am family orientated and I am married. I do not want my kids growing up with health problems. If you can solve the problem today, you need to solve it now. We can no longer wait. We can no longer procrastinate. And we can no longer wait on a company that works with another company that lied to us for all these years. You understand? We're not accepting it. Our voice is going to be heard. We're not going to sit down and we're not going to accept it. And we deserve better treatment from here on out. I mean, it's sad. The city has to be behind us because we're the ones have to pay the mortgage and stuff behind this. So I ask you guys, please look further into this, and we seek better help.
Yes, thank you.
Olivia Monby, Vatosa Bythewood.
All I got to say, I've been out there for 6 years.
Please state your name.
Olivia Monday. I've been out there for 6 years. They've been telling me the same thing. They told me I had to move in 24 hours, but the apartment they try to move me into, it's the same condition. So what I'm moving for? And my kids keep on asking me every day, oh, mama, so, and when we can move up out of here? I don't have that type of money to move, so we got to stay in this condition. Because I don't have no money like that just to run up out there and leave. And this has been going on and going on and going on, and I don't say nothing to them because they always say, well, we ain't got no money to fix nothing, so I just keep my mouth closed as long as I got a roof over my head. That's all I got to say.
Vatosa Bythewood, Ruby Hillman, Courtney Butler.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing today? My name is Vatosa Bythewood. I've been out there a whole year, since April of 2017. Since I've been there, I've been in the hospital 5 times. I am a severe asthmatic. I have to sleep with a machine every night. And for her and you guys to tell me just to get some bleach and just wipe it, and for y'all to come in there today and spray while I'm there, and no one say, open up the window. Nothing. I couldn't breathe. And right now I'm still having problems breathing. When I leave here, I'm going to the hospital. And I'm gonna give y'all my doctor's note. Because don't make no sense. I've been there a whole year. And out of that year, I've been on life support because of it. And for y'all to tell me that's not y'all responsibility, it's mine, that's not dirt, that's mold. And for y'all to paint over it, that's unacceptable for me and my son. I don't know what y'all plan on doing, but y'all need to do something. And by y'all coming in and y'all doing a recreation center, that's not what we need. We don't need a recreation center. We need better living conditions. I'm on disability. What can I do? I'm trying to provide for my son, not only my son, for me. And by my health being bad, how can I do that? And the first thing y'all want to do is come and take my kid over my dead body. So y'all need to do something. And y'all say y'all come to help me. Ain't nobody been there since they came and put a red tag on my door, but today. And how long y'all been there? Too long. I see you walk all day. No one come up to J205 and said nothing, but looked at me and waved and said, how you doing? That was it. And y'all think that's fair to the people that live there? And I only been there a year. I feel sorry for the people that's been there longer than me. I'm just getting my foot wet. Now imagine the people that's been there longer than me. And they just decided to say something. I've been wanting to say something. But every time I said something, she told me, oh, I can be evicted. But I'm to the point I'm tired of being threatened about being evicted because I want to speak my mind. Y'all gonna pay my hospital bills? Y'all gonna take care of my 16-year-old son? If anything happened to me, I think not. So if y'all don't do anything or help us, I don't know where else to go. I've been homeless, and I refuse to do it again to allow them to take my dignity because they want to just get money for their pocket. They're not helping us. They're not helping us at all. The year I've been there, I've not seen, oh yeah, they get the wood and made a playground. What playground did they use? What playground, what new playground do we got? They use the wood that we sit on to put a swing set. That is not a win. That's all I ask. We need help.
Thank you.
Ruby Hillman, Courtney Butler, Doretta Polk.
My name is Ruby Hillman. I live in Stony Brooks, and Stony Brooks is just not right. Mr. Richards, you came in my apartment, you looked under the cabinet, and your hands got water. You said, it's all right. It's not leaking. You asked, you asked, could you wash your hand in my sink? I said, yes. I gave you a paper towel. My cabinets in my kitchen, they folded. I told you the float, when the inspector came, she said I could fall. I sat there and I listened, and I went out the door, and this young man, my little grandson was there, and he let these people come in. Mo was in my air conditioner. Mo was in my bathroom all the way. All he did, he came in there, he sprayed and painted. How you gonna keep painting? How you gonna paint over mold? You can't paint over mold. My ex-husband was a painter. You cannot paint. You got to tear that stuff down, put it back up, and then paint it. You cannot keep doing it. I can't hardly breathe. I'm 68 years old. It's time for a change. I pay my rent. I pay my rent before time, but still, I had once, for instance, I had to go pay my rent. I went to pay what the lease said. The girl, she's gone now. She says, I can't take your rent. You're supposed to pay, you're $1 short. I had to spend $1 to get $1. A money order. It don't make sense. I have not seen some of y'all. I have not seen y'all, and I've been there 11 years. I've met this man yesterday. Mr. Richard, you came through my apartment. What are we paying for? You can't get on the grass. Ain't no grass, that's sand. No weeds. You can't barbecue. You can't, the playground is on the other side. My grandkids just left to go to Atlanta. Where they gonna play at? That's a baby thing. That ain't no adult thing. I mean, y'all got to do something. I mean, you take the mats from the doors. You throw them in the garbage can. You can't sit out, you can't even pull a chair out. I take medication. I'm not going to take that medication in the house. I fall out and nobody's there to help me. No, I'm tired of Stony Brooks. But I can't afford to go no place else. I'm on a fixed income. How you going to, I mean, you looking at, y'all want to do this and y'all want to do that. I have not had a decent set of cabinets. The thing on the road, this part coming up. She said I could, the inspector came, she said I could fall. If I fall in my house, who's going to be there to help get me up? Y'all talking about a center. What's the purpose of a center? You can't even invite nobody over there. I mean, I got a lot of grandchildren. My mama say, I'm not coming over there. Y'all trying to fix a building, fix apartments, put some grass down. Do something besides it. Take my money. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruby.
Courtney Butler, Doretta Polk. After Ms. Polk, Madam Chair, that will be our last public comment card.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Courtney Butler. I'm one of the resident. My name is Courtney Butler. I'm one of the residents ambassadors. When I moved to Stony Brooks 4 years ago in May, I had a 5-year plan that I can go and I will own a house after that. So good thing to this resident here, she had one of my letters to go and get the packet for the first time home buyers Friday. So I did go get that. But I reached out to Tanya Davis Johnson, and I don't like to put people on blast, but I got Ms. Ruby here and the other seniors and the people that are on fixed income. I asked if she would come out there and speak with these seniors and people on disability to figure out what they can do to help those people first. And then she can come and talk with us young folks. This is when they had this whole little thing. I came to the other meeting they had here about that one parking permit, and I asked Global to figure out something they can do, or Millennium figure out something they can do, and they've had yet to do something about anything until Crystal started her thing and got them on the news, and now everybody want to put 2 and 2 together and start trying to do something. After all this time, nobody's tried to do anything. The work orders in my apartment, they've been done, been like in the system, and they've yet to come and fix the soap dish in the bathroom. That's what created the mold, because I refuse to keep digging in that hole in the wall, because I don't know what's behind that wall. It's just drywall. They refuse, like the lady from the city says, that's not dual rock in the bathroom. So it's going to create mold because you just put plain drywall in there. It's not their fault. Whoever did it before Global, that's the issue. But since Millennium been there, that's when I put in the work order, because my soap dish fell because they didn't put it in right, yet to come out and fix it. My window is the only window out there. My window is green in my kitchen. They've yet to come and do anything since they put a red tag on my window. They've yet to come in my unit. So, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, I mean, I don't know if you plan on doing the whole renovation, but the little stuff that you could have been doing, you haven't been doing it. And these girls aren't wrong for coming and complaining and being heartfelt, like, at y'all throats, because y'all won't do y'all job. It took these one white lady and those 2 white men to come down here to do a job that us black folks been here all year long, and you haven't done nothing. That's what I don't get. That's what pisses me off the most. And then you got seniors and people that's on fixed income can't afford to move anywhere. They aren't healthy like me that can go get jobs and get into these first-time home buyers and go and move out of Stony Brooks. They're stuck in a situation that everybody's running themselves in a circle and running them crazy and breaking their heads and trying to figure out what can they do to live better. That's all they asking. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Doretta Polk.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is Doretta Park, and I'm just so saddened to hear how these people in Stony Brook, these families are living. We have to do something for these families. No one, I bet you Mr. Richards and all of your employees there wouldn't stay one night in a facility like this. One night. Why don't you walk in their shoes, sleep the beds they sleep in, and see what they're going through. Their journey is a journey of just pure hell. Who lives like this in the United States? And talking about putting up another little building, they don't need that. They don't need that. From the city council, I would suggest that you just demolish this building and start completely over. This mold they speak of, who's to say asbestos is not in these buildings? This is very dangerous. We have our little ones, they have their little ones who is going to run the city and grow up, and how will their future be? How can they sustain the life they're living? This is deplorable. And everyone on the council, you all know this is deplorable. And I thank you all for putting this agenda on. I didn't realize how bad this situation, living situation at Stony Brook was until it was on Channel 5. This is deplorable. And I know the mayor tried to do something a couple of years ago concerning this, but this should not be going on this long. This long. And I'm gonna tell you, it seems to me HUD needs to come through here. The state attorney needs to come through here, because this is chaos. Chaos in the city of Riviera Beach, how our citizens are living. I see some of the pictures. And for you all to go and paint over mold, that is just totally wrong, and I believe it's totally illegal. And the state attorney needs to come in the city and see how some of our residents are suffering, because no one should have to live like this. No one. And they certainly wouldn't live like this. Pack them up and let them go to Stony Brook and live one night in Stony Brook, or one whole day of no air conditioning. Live like this. Don't put your heads down. Live like this. It's wrong. It's deplorable. It needs to be towed down to the bone and restarted. And that's all I have to say. And shame, shame, shame on you all. Global and Manolio. Shame on you. And the city of Rivera, I hope the council people would agree that these people do need help, and help very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Councilwoman Miller Anderson, you're recognized.
I wanted to ask the organization, based on the condition of the properties, how quickly can you all fix those particular apartments? Is this based on what everyone has stated, there are some living conditions that are obviously unacceptable. What's going to be the timeline in terms of fixing those particular apartments? Yes.
It should be able to, with the proper permitting, independent permitting, get it done in 2 months.
Madam Chairwoman, honorable council members, my name is Tom McNona. I'm with Millennia Housing Development. I've been working on pulling together the resources and the financing and pulling together the construction plans and specifications and designs to move forward with the substantial rehabilitation. It's been a process that we've been working through since 2017. At times we've spoken with members of the city in 2017 and early 2018 in which to solicit input, to explain our process and our timing. Our financing, which is necessary for the construction, the substantial rehabilitation of every unit, is dependent upon city approvals. Without the city approvals, we will not have the construction financing to move forward with the acquisition nor the rehabilitation of the units. That is sort of why we are a bit at a stalemate. I understand everyone's frustration. I really do. And I can't speak to the conditions. I can only speak to the improvements that we are planning and how we've gotten to this point on the substantial rehab, working closely with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Florida Housing Finance Corporation, and city staff to come up with, you know, these 3 items that we need for a comprehensive rehab. I think there's 2 parts here. I think we are doing everything we can as just a management agent and not the owner to move forward to make the improvements to address the concerns of these residents. I know they won't be satisfied, and I know they'll continue to scoff at us, but we are not the owner. We do not have construction financing to do any rehabilitations, not any substantial ones. We have to first acquire the property, we have to get the city approvals, and then close on our construction financing and work with the Florida Housing Finance Agency to secure the low-income housing tax credits to complete this rehabilitation. The community center is not the focal point. However, sometimes we make it in our presentations. It's not necessary for this project. Really the important part of this project is addressing every unit, soup to nuts. We throw in that community center because it also allows us to have a centralized location in the property to unify the left side and the right side, to have a property manager be able to address resident issues as well as security issues in the center of the property. It allows us to have a fitness center. It allows us to have community space for social programming in the center of the property. But again, this is more of a dire situation. It's crucial that the sooner we can get approvals for our construction financing, the sooner we can start addressing the questions. I've heard many of the residents complain, and I get it. I understand their frustration. However, they all said, you all have to do something about this. And we have a plan to do something about it. I know that we have to earn your trust, and I see everyone drawing comparisons of what happened here 5-6 years ago when another outsider came and made these promises. However, if you do your due diligence, if you do your research on GMF, you won't see that they have done acquisition and rehabs of properties across the country. You'll find that we have. We have done it in over 25 states where we have owned, managed, rehabbed properties. I know that that doesn't make things good for you now. I'm sorry. I know. All I could do is put forth a solution for the long-term rehabilitation of this property that will address your issues.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Continue, Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Okay, so because you all are not the owners and you're the management company, you're unable to provide any renovations or rehab those apartments that are in a bad state at this moment.
We are doing what we can to address the life safety issues. And as the management agent, we don't have a responsibility to do that even. It's on the ownership. However, I know that we have a vested interest in acquiring these properties. We want to make things as good as possible so that we can move forward with the acquisition and the substantial rehabilitation to follow.
Okay, and with that being said, you all are willing to address the red tag apartments to bring them up to a situation where it is no longer a life safety issue?
Yes, ma'am. We have brought together maintenance techs from different properties that we own, as well as bringing Mr. Andrew Anders from North Carolina to oversee them and try to effectuate immediate emergency repairs. I think we have roughly 10 people mobilized now working on this.
So that would take care of, and I would imagine we're talking about the people who are mainly being impacted the most are the apartments that you're talking about trying to correct?
I really can't speak to that as far as the condition of which units and how quickly we can turn them is really not my expertise.
Okay, so being that the construction companies are here and they will be addressing those issues, in the meantime, are those residents expected to stay in those? Well, obviously, if they're red tag, they can't be in there. So they're going to be placed somewhere else on the property?
I have to find out what the management company's plan is for temporary relocation and placement of the residents who cannot be in their units.
Okay, so with Ms. March, does Ms. March know exactly which, and I'm speaking to Ms. Hoskins, or if Ms. March wants to come up, Ms. March Goldwire, the apartments that were red tag, the items in which needed to be fixed, is this something that can be done in a matter of days, provided there's a large enough crew to come in? And will this help the situation with those who are impacted the most? I mean, if they come in and fix just the red tag ones, is everybody else okay for a longer period of time, or do you foresee there being even more places that could possibly be red tag a couple weeks from now, or very soon? I mean, I understand the property is old and all units probably need something, but I'm talking about those that are in a severe state. If with the construction group coming in, making the necessary repairs, will that satisfy the ailment concerns until they acquire the property?
On some units, maybe. On most of the units, no. Again, the original intent when we went out was not to have to tag anything. However, after looking through all of the units, we ultimately decided to put the tags on 30 units. Let me just go on the record and say, memorialize my position. If I had it my way, I would have tagged the entire facility. However, the vouchers associated with that facility do not transfer. By tagging the entire facility, it would have created a pandemic of homelessness that I don't necessarily know the city would have been able to address.
Mm-hmm.
Let me further go on record as saying I cited this back in September of last year, and this has been a burden for me, more so than anything else, while serving in this job, that complex. Because tagging it, or doing what some of my colleagues doing what my colleagues would have most likely done if faced with the same situation, they would have pulled the power, cut the water, and allowed them to figure it out. We were trying to attempt to give Millennia the opportunity to remedy the issues, dealing with the first 30 properties that came up that we tagged, hoping that they would be able to move forward in their process. The issue with the red tag is, from a code enforcement perspective, some of the ordinance that has been called out, I think it's 22-35, there's a process associated with notice, there's a process associated with allowing a certain amount of time to be able to remedy the issue. from the perspective of the Florida Building Code, the minute life safety is impacted, sometimes decisions have to be made on the spot from the perspective of it being an emergency situation. The dilemma for the last year for me has been, if I do what I felt like I should have done, then we do not have placement for all 216 doors. When I spoke with members of the county or individuals who I needed to get some advice from as to what to do next, last year they were of the mindset to create the pandemic of homelessness, and that would open up appropriations to be able to do what we needed to do. Problem with that was I just wasn't certain that they would be able to come through, and once the issues were tagged or the houses were tagged, then we'd be stuck with no plan B. I've voiced my concerns. I don't know where they are in being able to get the units ready. I have not gone back out there as they've requested, I will admit to that. And I did not do that at this point because I was under the impression, based on what I cited, based on what some of the members of our team observed, I didn't believe that it was likely that they remedied all of the issues.
If they brought in a large crew, based on what they're saying, do you have any plans of going out there anytime this week? To go and address it tomorrow or, as soon as possible?
I will go back out and look at the 15 units. Again, the issue associated with the red tags is the moment we put the tags on the door, technically, they are enforceable actions, which means the individual should not be there. One of the things that I was concerned about was if in the event they attempted to make the remediations, they would make them with the individuals in the unit. And now I'm hearing tonight that's exactly what's happened. And we've got some issues with some people complaining about being sick. It's not the way that's supposed to go. I thought that there were buildings or units available that they would be able to utilize and move the individuals in. But quite frankly, what we observed on Thursday when we were there were none. If they were present, they weren't necessarily ready. Some of the flooring had been disturbed.
Okay, so you'll go back out there tomorrow to check on the ones that they said that they've corrected. With those 15, does that take care of, what about the other 15 if there were 30 that were red tagged?
What happened was we red tagged, I think 9 of the buildings or units were empty. And we tagged them because of the flooring and it having been disturbed and some concerns about the content or the composition of the flooring. There are some additional concerns for most of the units. We've asked for them to conduct some environmental testing to address mold and some of our other suspicions. Trepidation for me is just the residents being present after I've noticed the issues, because there is a certain level of negligence associated with just allowing them to remain and not enforcing the action now that I've made witness of the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor and then Chair Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'm done. Thank you. Madam Chair, I was informed, and I know we have the rules and the protocol procedures, but the young man that was the nucleus of getting all of this, get the attention, for lack of a better word, was a minute, from what I was told, a minute late, and wasn't able to, he is the one that's been sending the notices out and everything that has been generated, and then the tenant association, and then the president, Crystal, and the vice president, they started from that. So he's here, and I'm asking you or the council to make an exception to allow him to speak.
Sir, would you come forward? You have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My name's Adam. I'm the chair of the Palm Beach County Tenants Union. We went into Stony Brook about 3 months ago. One of the first things and the repeated things that we've heard since we've been in, the number one problem with the tenants has been the on-site property management. Millennia's employee, Miss Lee, her just frequent abuse, displacement, evictions for frivolous reasons. If you check the court doc, that she tried to evict somebody for calling her by her first name. Just the general Gestapo state and prison, as they have called it since we have first gone in there. Every single tenant says that Stony Brook is run like a prison by Millennia Property Management. And Miss Lee is the prison ward. We have heard it from every single tenant. Not one tenant will disagree from this. They will say they did not know about this, they did not hear about this, but the tenants have told them directly to their face, to their representatives, in unison with dozens of tenants present, that this is the state there, and they went ahead and just ignored them. Now, since then, she went on a rampage of retaliation, towing 20 cars in a matter of a week. Crystal, since she's been organizing on the property, has had her car mysteriously destroyed 3 times, or vandalized 3 times, with cameras never seeming to work when it happens. And so, this is the state, and it's not just in Stony Brook, it's in plenty of other properties. If you talk to the tenants in Forest Cove in Atlanta, and Cordoba Courts in Miami, and Eureka Gardens in Jacksonville, talk to the tenants on these properties and ask them how Millennia treats them. It's the same prison state everywhere. It's the same everywhere that Millennia is. They have made the conditions worse. They are saying, if Millennia is like this as a property management, how are they going to be as an owner? So forget the rehab. I mean, we're talking about $13 million rehab. They're talking about $30 million rehab in Forest Cove in Atlanta. The tenants there are saying, oh, well, where's our guaranteed right of return after this rehab? Where's their guarantee we're not going to get our rents raised, that we're not going to be displaced? Are we going to actually get to enjoy this rehab? I haven't heard this question asked at any point tonight, which is kind of weird. So that is just some of the concerns. Let me think. Okay, so we're talking about in Millennia. Who's at fault with Millennia GMF, the sale, the ownership? Millennia has actually delayed the sale twice. You can check the record. Millennia has delayed the sale twice. Why are they delaying the sale? They're negotiating rent increases with HUD. You can check the record.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions or comments from council? Chair Pro Tem?
Okay. 2 things. One, I wanted to ask Ms. March, and the second thing I'll say while she's coming. I don't want the council, my colleagues, to misunderstand that there is anything that Millennia has no blame in all of this. As a management company, they have not done what they can do as a management company. If anybody wants to go on and Google the name, some of the things right here that they're doing presently leads me to believe that once the deal is closed, it won't be any better for the people. The gentleman cited some of the other properties that they own now. I don't, one thing that I agree with that everybody has said here is that we need to tear it down, rebuild a guaranteed spot for the residents to move into somewhere else and let that place be the commercial site that it is. Everybody has come there for that site to do commercial on because of the railroad tracks that's behind Stony Brook. So I think that it's environmentally unsafe, period, because of all the things that are in the area. And if we are thinking that, hey, they're going to put $13 million of renovations in here, then the people are going to be better off once the $13 million worth of renovation. Number one, if you don't walk in there tomorrow and fire Miss Lee, whoever she is, with the things going on, that alone tells you that there's a problem with what's happening here for the things that people are telling you how your employee is treating your residents. So I wanted to ask Ms., to the same end, Ms. March, I wanted to ask you about 2017, how did it happen that y'all went out there to make the list of concerns? And with Millennia, now I'm not talking about GMF, I'm talking about with Millennia, but yet y'all are back here today saying that a week ago there was an inspection, and somehow we now saying within that 1 year period, none of those concerns were done, and they were in charge of the management. And you yourself said you put it in an email form, you let your concerns be known. What became of that?
Well, when we initially went out because of some of the same reasons that prompted this inspection. We had the fire. The fire led to us inquiring about BTR status, which is business tax receipt status. They didn't have a license, and they currently don't have a license to rent the units. And we needed an inspection to justify approving the application that they put in to the office to get that done. We had, again, the fire, and then on top of the fire, the hurricanes. We did the inspections unit by unit then, and based on having done unit by unit inspections, and I think that's where where my frustration lies, is when we did unit by unit inspections last year, September, and we had conversations, we talked about the illegal conversion of the closet space. They have rooms that aren't technically bedrooms because they don't have closets. There are some minimum housing or minimum property standards required by HUD that I'm not quite sure how they've been able to get over and around being a HUD property. HUD should technically probably be conducting some inspections, and that wasn't happening. Because of those findings and because of those concerns, I put the information in an email, most specifically regarding the units that had the fire and the units that had been affected by the hurricane. There was a fight to get the property to understand at that point that they needed to designate the entire area as a Zone A property in the event that we had a hurricane.
Zone A?
Zone A is a designation that's associated with the properties located near the water, some of the mobile home properties. The county allows for certain designations, and those designations trigger mandatory evacuation zones. And so what we were trying to do was make sure that during this hurricane season, we could allocate that or designate that space as a mandatory evacuation zone so that we would not be or find ourselves in the situation we were in last year, whereby we were out in the storm trying to complete rescues or whatnot because of the failure of the roofs. We documented it, we put it in an email, but at that point there was some concern, and we were basically advised to stand down, not to utilize statutory authorities to designate the property.
Stand down, what do you mean?
Basically, the email indicated that we had some issues with them failing to address some of our concerns relative to some of the damage that had been that occurred from the fire and then from the hurricane. They were moving a bit slow, and I wanted to acknowledge that the bedrooms in the units had been, or the closets had been converted to bedrooms, so to speak. And in that correspondence, it was an exchange, and basically we were asked to,
with Millennia, or the exchange?
No,
was
we were
with
talking
who?
with management at that point. So management had advised risk management to kind of govern my statements to Millennia about some of the improvements that they needed to make, and that they also advised that we or I needed to vet my concerns and comments through risk management and legal as not to drum up any concerns. And so since from that time to now, it's more or less been a situation where we've tried to walk light. I did advise that I did not want to come back out to the property if in fact they hadn't addressed last year's concerns, but obviously the media, the concerns of the tenants with them unionizing, it prompted us, we had no choice but to go out. And because they were making an ask of the council, it just put us in a really, really good position where they had to accommodate our requests. We had made 4 requests to get out into the property between November and July. Each time those requests had been denied by Ms. Lee, we were rescheduled. We only got in, and this is my personal opinion, because we did need to do the inspections and be able to provide. I think it was yourself and Councilwoman Botel who asked for updates. We couldn't provide those updates without going into the units and seeing them, and that's how we ultimately got to a space where we were doing the massive inspections of all the units.
Okay, you're two things you said that I wasn't clear on. The exchange was with our management and our risk management about to stand down?
Not risk management. Risk management was basically asked to monitor my statements to Millennia about some of the deficiencies that we had. There was a correspondence basically whereby management had indicated that, you can use your statutory authority if you choose to do so, but we want to make sure that we're good partners with Millennia. We want to ensure that your messaging isn't all over the place with regard to.
I guess I am. When you say management, I guess you have to be clearer with me, because what I'm sitting here saying is that I hope that we on this dais aren't buying into what we're being sold. So at that time in 2017, again, I say if we had an opportunity to do something, or if they had an opportunity to do something and they didn't do it then, and based on the printouts and the research, not GMF, I'm talking Millennia, they didn't do it. They aren't going to do it now. My end, and for me, I agree. Tear it down, rebuild some units somewhere else, give some guarantees to the people that live there. But it's not a safe place where it sits anyway. The place is you can't, and I don't see it being repaired with the people living in there. If they have money, they have that kind of money. If I was them, I would build somewhere else and sell that land to a commercial owner, because all the commercial people want it. So thank you. I know you are. Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Botel, you recognize.
Just a question for Mr. Richards. If the council said, okay, we think we need to see some action on this, we want to get people into better housing, what what timeline would, a few questions. What timeline would there be with regard to the sale? When could it be effectuated? What guarantees would the city have that you would, in effect, that you would live up to your word and make these improvements? Does the city have any recourse if you don't make these improvements? In other words, if you were to walk away and if you were to continue, I shouldn't say continue, if you were to misbehave, let's put it that way, if you were to misbehave as stewards of this property and these people continue to live in this kind of situation, what would the recourse be in terms of the city? What would we have at our disposal to say to you, get out of our lives, go away, we're taking this place over?
Wayne Richards, once again. I'm going to start, and if anyone else wants to finish. But with regard to getting assurances that the work would be done, Millennia would agree to a condition of approval in your documents that would require us to apply for the building permits for the rehab of all 216 units. We would also agree that that work must be completed within the next number of months. So we would agree in your conditions of approval. We would voluntarily put that in there so you have it in writing and it's enforceable. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
And quickly, could that be phased in such that the improvement to the home situation, the improvement to the housing would be done prior to any thought of a recreational or community center in the middle? In other words, could we look at improving the housing stock first and then phasing in the other improvements?
So let me try to ask the question and ask Tom to answer it. Is it possible to literally substantially improve the buildings prior to the amenity of the clubhouse?
Right.
While you answer, think about the landscaping and all that other stuff, please.
Madam Chair, to the councilwoman, the phasing of the improvements would start with the residential units and can end with the community building being the last thing. That doesn't minimize the importance of the three items that we're asking for the council to consider.
I would ask for just 1 minute for us to give a couple of responses before we leave tonight, please. A lot's been said.
Were you done with your questions, Councilwoman?
Thank
you. Go ahead, let's proceed, Mr. Richards.
Thank you very much for that.
Good evening. I know it's been a long night, and I will be brief. My name is Jeff Crossman. I work for Millennia Housing Management Company. Usually on Monday nights, I'm in my own city council meetings as an elected official, but I thought it was very important to be here at this meeting this week, and I'll be here on Wednesday as well. I'll be here all week. Just to re-emphasize a couple key points here, not to belabor the point, but to emphasize them. Millennia came on in 2017 as the manager for an unaffiliated company, the GMF entity that owns this property. And since that time, we have engaged with the city to work with you all as a partner moving this property forward. And from that starting point, you have to understand that's where we come from, is a good faith basis to move forward and transform this property. And everything we've done moving forward has been toward that end. You have to understand that the predicament that we're in is that we are limited in our role as manager based on ownership's availability of funds. So we could make certain improvements, and again, this has been discussed and sort of passed over at times this evening, but we can only make certain improvements up to an extent that we have the funds to do so. And as the manager of the property, we don't have unlimited resources. We have what's available to us from the owner. We can't move forward to transform the property in the way that you need without the approvals that we'll be seeking on Wednesday evening. We're hoping that you will support that plan. And quite frankly, I'm surprised to hear this discussion about tearing down units, especially with the lack of affordable housing, not only across the country, but specifically here in Florida. We're offering to preserve these units, to transform these units into what is essentially new construction at the end of the day. So we hope to secure your support for this project. And quite frankly, the red tagged units that were tagged last week, you know, we have been working so diligently since the city was out there last week through the weekend. We've had a team of 15 people out there, not just 10, 15 people out there with Mr. Adams supervising starting today to make sure that we are confident that these units will pass reinspection once the city comes back out there to reinspect. So I encourage the city to come back out to reinspect the ones that we think are good to go. And to the council members that wish to participate in that process, we would invite you to the property and participate, and we can walk you through exactly what the unit was cited for, what the corrective work that was done, and we can start from there. So hopefully that we can get that your support on Wednesday after you've had a chance to look at those. So that's my invitation to you. And like I said, I'll be here all week. We'll be happy to answer any questions after this meeting, if you wish to discuss it further. We want to be a partner with the city of Riviera Beach. We're not here to come and paint the front of the house and flip it. We want to be a long-term partner. So that's all I have to say, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Did I understand you to suggest that tearing down and rebuilding would take it out of the affordable housing market? Did I understand?
Well, I guess I don't understand the point of tearing down units that already exist. I mean, you know, you're taking out of circulation 216 units that are available to residents of this area.
So let me explain to you why. It has historically, since its inception, been not cared for in a proper manner, and the disrepair and the neglect has continued on for so many years. And so you have so many major issues in that property that you may not necessarily be able to mitigate all that is currently affecting the residents of Stony Brook. I own a home. I had a mold issue. I had to get an air quality inspector, right? They had to come in and tear out all of my ducts. They had to tear out my walls. So they are in the process of, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. But they are in the process of trying to repair, and we're saying, you need to come in and correct this. And I just think that the issues in Stony Brook have gone on for so long that just trying to repair it is not necessarily the right thing to do. Now, what I don't know is whether or not there is any property that is available for us to move Stony Brook to, and I get where it sits. And this city has historically had an issue of putting industrial and abutting it to residential. But that's the largest parcel of land that we have right now outside of what's being turned for the new housing authority, which is giving us, pardon? Yeah, that's the only place that we have that is a large enough piece of a plat of land to even consider, but it is already spoken for. So I just believe that based on everything that I've seen, that my colleagues have seen, and that the residents have experienced, the best manner in which to probably address it would be to tear it down and start afresh.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Magnolia.
Preserving the buildings, and by that I mean essentially scraping the walls off down to the stud, taking the floorboards out, replacing the roofs, replacing the windows, while maintaining the structure itself, preserves the HAP contract and the 216 units that receive place-based Section 8 vouchers. To demolish, relocate to a new location, I don't foresee and I cannot guarantee that there would be any affordability that would transfer from HUD to the new location, and therefore would put at risk of displacing permanently 216 affordable units in your community.
I would have no, I mean, it has functioned, and generations of families have gone through Stony Brook. I don't know that the residents want to move. I think that the issue of moving was just brought up by my colleague to my right. It's not necessarily something that the council has agreed that it would want to do. But if the idea of tearing it down, rebuilding it in its place, does that take away HUD's ability to voucher it? Just a question.
Can't answer that question. What I can answer is that what we would be able to do is go building by building. New walls, new ceilings, new floors, new HVAC, appropriately constructed and designed so that there isn't a mold issue moving forward. Taking the residents and putting them back into the units where they were moved out of once we complete it building by building and systematically renovating that property over 18 months. We've done it in the past. We plan to do it with this property. We can do it with this property. We are confident.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mayor, you recognize.
Thank you. Mr. Richardson, I need to talk to you for a minute. Just quickly, first of all, it's not acceptable to hear your client say that they don't have the money to make the, they don't have the resources or the money to make the necessary, what needs to be done now. I mean, maybe I didn't understand that correctly, but if they don't have it, they need to get the money some kind of way. If they're the manager, if they're going to be responsible for getting what needs to be done, then it's just not acceptable to hear your client say that we've got to do this before they do that. No, it's the other way around. You do this before we do that, which means that it needs to be done. It needs to be done, period. And, then why do you take over the management and you don't have, your hands are handcuffed and you don't have the resources? I mean, is that what your client is saying? That help me understand that a little better.
The answer is yes, Mayor. You have read that correctly. Along with that, from 2017, they have been planning to basically gut the place building by building and systemically rebuild it from the bottom up. So you're right on point. You really
So
are.
why don't they just buy it right like now?
That's the plan. They're ready. Yes, sir.
What has kept them from buying it in a year and a half?
They're ready now.
Someone testified that there's been twice that they could have bought it and didn't buy it.
But
There was a
you're
delay.
right-
I
you're
mean,
right
I
on-
heard that from someone that said that. Was that young man correct?
Well,
Or was that
you're right on point about the plan, though. Manage it, acquire it, redo it. But I can't address how many months it takes to get financing. I don't know. Please. Sure. Be very open.
Happily. Mayor?
Hi.
In order to get the financing to acquire a property and do the improvements, we have to be permitted by the city to do those improvements. In other words, if you were to buy your house and you wanted to add another floor to it, but the city wouldn't allow you to do the floor, well, no bank's going to lend you money for something that you can't do, correct?
I'm hearing you.
So unless we have our plans fall within line with the city approval process, no lender is going to lend us money for something we cannot do, which is why we are requesting the city for approval to work with us so we can substantiate and do these improvements.
My question is, or the heart of my question, is it true that you guys had an opportunity to buy the property twice in this last year and a half or whatever and didn't do it or wouldn't do it? I mean, someone said that tonight. Did you hear the young man's statement? Someone said they have proof of that?
I would love to see his proof, because we have extended and continue to extend our option to purchase the agreement because of the delays associated with the construction process and the approvals from the city.
Okay, Mr. Richardson, one more thing. Can you explain to me, and I'm really concerned about that, because when Stony Brook needs the police, we're there. When they call us for whatever, we're there, whether it's police services or whatever. But why were we turned down 3 times by Mrs. Lee in order to get on the property? This is the city. Why do you turn the city down?
I'm I'm going to find out. I wrote that down. Absolutely.
Well, that's not acceptable. Please note for me, and I'm sure I'm speaking for colleagues. And it seems to be that the person that did this was Miss Lee, whoever her name is. Is that right, Miss Lee? Well, you know, if tenants are having problems with her and relating to her and vice versa, and if they're being treated that way and then the city is being treated that way by the same person, that's a problem for me. So I would respectfully ask you to see what's going on with this Miss Lee lady, that she is responding the way that the tenants say that she's responding to them, and we know she responded to us in a way that's not acceptable. The other thing is, and then I'll close. I'm concerned about the accusation, harassment, or calling the police for simple gatherings, absent, legitimate, and articulable cases of disturbed the peace or violations of floor statutes. Please look into that. I would be very upset if this union is not able to talk to people on the property. I think you create and to deny or to try to keep the union off the property. I mean, these are their clients, just like you have their client. You have the clients on this side. And I would be very upset to know that Ms. Lee or whoever is using the authority to keep legitimate advocates from talking or having any type of gathering. Now, I'm waiting to see how this is going to shake out. But if anybody is arrested for exercising their freedom of speech and for trying to talk to tenants, it's going to bring me back in. And if it brings me back in, I'm not leaving the next time. I've made probably 2 mistakes of leaving before. If it brings me back in, then the mayor may get arrested, because that's not good. If that's true, I would ask you respectfully to look into that and change that atmosphere and not deny that. I mean, as long as they're not creating any trouble and trouble as far as any violence or anything like that. But, you know, I'm concerned about this accusation. That disturbs me. So I would hope that you would look into that and make the environment more welcoming to people who are advocates and people who have a right to speak to their clients, whether it's the legal aid or the lawyers who spoke. I mean, they may deny them access to come on the property, or the advocate. That's just wrong. And I hope they don't deny me, because they do. We'll be protesting again, and we won't leave. So I'm allowing Millennium to do whatever they say they're going to do. I've stayed out of it. The tenants, I'm thankful to see that there is representation, and we do want to go forward. I've given my opinion. I told them from day one, are you sure you want to put this kind of money? I mean, even the scripture tells you it's a problem putting new wine in old bottles, you know, and I get that, but it's their money if that's what they choose to do, and that makes financial sense to them. I guess that's their decision. But I just don't want to create an atmosphere, and I know they're denying access for the press to come on the property. That creates problems, because when you try to hide stuff or when you deny things, then it creates a bigger problem. That needs to kind of be fixed. You know, if you want to deny the press, that's your right. But the city being denied, and it took 3 times, that's not acceptable. And for this union to write this, and it seems like there's one person that's being this type of person to us and to others, is just not acceptable. Please fix that.
We'll look into it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
One moment, Mr. Davis. I want to find out if it's the consensus of this council to immediately reach out to HUD or the Housing Authority to ask if there could be immediate transference of those life safety issue residents to take advantage of the properties that were extended to us this evening by a property owner here in the city.
Mr. Lawson. What's his name?
I'm clear.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Unbelievable. I would like to know if we are amenable to reaching out immediately to the Housing Authority, asking for immediate transference. Are we,
Yes, but are you talking about the one?
I'm talking about the ones who have the
Right.
serious life, safety, health
Right.
issues, the asthmatic, you know, those who have those issues.
Whether to his property or to some
To any
acceptable-
property.
acceptable property, yes.
All right, so therefore, we can direct the city manager's office to contact the housing, I think it's Housing and Urban Development and Local Housing Authority to find out who handles those vouchers and who has those vouchers so that we can immediately place those so that those units, if the goal is not to rebuild, not to tear it down, but to in fact rebuild it, we need to be able to provide an opportunity for them to at least start there, and then we can continue the discussion.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Davis, you're recognized. We do have consensus, I did hear. But go ahead,
I just
you
want to make sure
recognize.
that it's, from going through this before, that we don't limit it to just Riviera Beach property owners. Two, we should not allow the current owner off the hook because they should be on notice about the meeting that's getting ready to take place. We having conversation with property manager, but no one seems to ask the question, where's the current property owner?
I
And the
asked that
current
question.
well,
I asked that question very early on.
well,
Where's
someone should be
GMF?
reaching out to the current property owner, asking for them to divvy up the funds to do what needs to be taking place.
That would be Millennia, since
Well-
they are the representative of the property owner.
Well, there's certain things that the
Attorney
city and
or
certain
our
controls we
attorney.
have in place that we should be also in those conversations as well. We can't keep waiting for new folks to purchase the property, do our part. They need to hear from us, just like the same way they came to us and told that unconventional story in front of the public as a minister. We know where that got us. So I think that needs to take place as well. Hey, listen, we have a meeting, maybe 2 meetings coming up. You're receiving funding on behalf of these families in this community. You're on notice. You need to assist out with this, because they should not be just allowed to continue. Because HUD can take those funds and HUD can freeze that stuff if they have the power to do that stuff. So between HUD and that conversation, HUD can put pressure on the current property owner. This is the property manager. But the current property owner, those conversations with HUD should definitely be in a direction of putting pressure on the current property owner. Even though you have a sale that may potentially be happening, that still doesn't mean that you're not held accountable until that day takes place, whenever that may happen. You know, they can't be sitting back so where the property is going to sell, so I can sit back and wait to happen. No, they shouldn't. You know, even some of that money got to go in the escrow for construction, so we can make sure that happens. You know, and if there's some money that's going to take place, the construction funds, we need to have some say so in that conversation on to make sure that that is executed. Are we gonna be back here, or someone else will be back here in another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years with some new families? Until we get HUD at the table and follow through with HUD, that's the problem. That's the issue that we have to do. Everyone across the country is having issues with making sure that HUD has a watchdog of all the processes that are in place. It's the same office, same location, same thing that keep happening all across this world. And no one want to put HUD in the conversation and the current owner.
Well, I believe that is an appropriate action, and I'm sure that this body would agree that GMF needs to be held responsible for its actions or its inactivity, shall we say. But we will start there and continue the discussion with the Millennia Group moving forward on Wednesday. But we know that is the first item. Our very first action is going to be the transference of certificates for the life safety issue residents who have been reg tagged or otherwise being displaced. Do we have any further direction for for staff? Alrighty. Well, is there any discussion by the city? Were you done with your comments, Mr. Richards and Mr. Magnolia? Thank you. That's okay. Discussion by the city manager?
None.
Discussion by city attorney?
Nothing for your consideration this evening.
City council committee reports? Statements by mayor and council. Mr. Mayor is off the dais. City attorney? Mr. Davis, any comments?
I will be very brief. Tonight, we had an opportunity to take the first step and just hear the residents out, hear the advocates, and hear the property owners. And I just want to say to the residents that came in, actually had the courage to stand before the podium, stand before the public, and share their stories, share their concern, their passion. We hear you. That's important, that you take a stand for yourself, this community, and understand that we are here for you, to work for you, and that's our responsibility. When we come to these meetings, it's our job to find a way to come to consensus the way we did today. It's pointing in the right direction. When public come to the meetings, I try to stay to public comments, you know, because it's the right thing to do. But a previous meeting, we had a constituent that come from across the bridge, that was in the audience, and made some comments and they made some comments that I wasn't comfortable with. I don't know if you all are aware of it, but they used some very derogative comments about some of us up here. And I did not come back home to serve this community to be called the N-word. And I will not run from anyone. Well, listen, like I say, everyone might not be aware. You know, I'm not here it is what it is. I'm gonna tell you, be very clear on it. You can't speak on something that you don't know, but I'm telling you what I'm aware of, okay? Can't speak on something you don't know. I did not come home to be disrespected. And if that individual, like I told this individual on previous occasion, I will respect you, I will take your emails, I will take your phone calls, but you will not come here and have an unruly opportunity to unleash wrath on me publicly, disrespect me and be aggressive, but not be positive in this community. As long as I live, I will not sit here and take it anymore. When you make your comments, you come to the mic and you change directions, but you sit in the audience and say other things. Because people in the audience, everybody not with the negativity. And they come and they tell us what is happening. So what I do to remove myself from the negativity, it has to stop. And some of us may be cool with it. Some of us may turn our head on it. But when it starts happening to you or people in your family, then maybe you will treat the situation a little differently. I am somebody else's child. I am somebody else's father. And I would not be disrespected any longer.
Thank you. Councilwoman Botel, any comments? Councilwoman Miller Anderson?
No.
Chair Pro Tem?
Thanks everybody for coming out and having this discussion, and I hope the residents of Stony Brook know that we are going to stand with them until we get to the bottom of it. Thank you.
We look forward to continued dialogue with residents as well as the property owner, and there being no further business, we stand adjourned. Good night.